their schedule is such that they need to do that at their December 16th meeting. Hence, we needed to take action before that. All of this information on the time sensitivity of it was provided to us late last week, much to the, I guess, the chagrin of a number of us who had to scramble to make sure that this would be able to take place tonight. And we're going to be calling upon Diane Marcotte, our finance director, to speak to this topic. However, there was a sign-up sheet out in the lobby, and because of the shortness of this meeting and the specificity of the topic, I'm going to ask that people take no more than 3 minutes if they wish to speak to the topic. And the criteria, aside from that 3-minute limitation, are the same as at any city council meeting, a regular city council meeting. And that is that we ask you to please come over to the lectern and use the microphone there. Let us know your name, your address, and if you feel that you have some specific thing, special thing that you want to identify for the council that might help them better understand your concern or your interest, such as you're a resident, you're a property owner, a business owner, whatever you think is important, please feel free to tell us that at that time. And if you have written comments, please feel free to submit them. Those will go to the clerk. And with that, I'll ask if anyone has signed up to speak.
Yes, and my apologies, I don't have my microphone over here, but first is Tori Cole. You wish to speak?
Sure.
Is this fine? Okay. Hi, my name's Tori Cole, and I've been a resident of Brookshire Estates for 20 years, and came here from Seattle. Love the area still, like my home, and I like the opportunity of being part of Issaquah, formally part of Issaquah. My concern is that if for some reason, because I don't understand the ins and outs of the way processes work in this manner, or in this matter, that we may end up back in square one, which is unincorporated King County. When you compare the way that they don't do business and the way you folks do business and the way that occasionally Sammamish apparently does, because I'm very uninformed about them, they don't brush against me in any sense. Brookshire Estates is on the south side, if you would, of Klahanie itself. That would be the fate. That would be the worst of all fates. I do want positively to be a member of Issaquah, the city, and the small things that matter when they become crisis points. Snow removal. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I need to get to where clients are. In the age of email, that works to a degree, and then to a point past that, it doesn't work. And I want to just go and make sure that at least you've heard from just an average person, someone that has not been really working in this garden a whole long time, but I feel strongly about it, and I just hope that whatever you folks can do to push this forward in a positive way for us to be part of you eventually can happen, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who signed up?
Yes, Mike Foss.
Hi, my name is Mike Foss. I, like Tori, live in Brookshire Estates, and I've always thought that I was in Issaquah. In fact, it was the first 3 years we lived there, we thought we lived in Issaquah, and it wasn't until the 2005 campaign did we realize we weren't. And I just wanted to kind of share something. We've been on kind of a campaign to communicate with our PAA neighbors to kind of get a feel for how they're feeling. And we have, so far, at least from what results I've seen from the phone campaign, a very, very, very positive feeling from them. We're very high on the yes, we want to be part of Issaquah. There were several people in my calls, and we had like 10 or 11 people making calls, but there was several people on my calls who were on the fringe. They didn't know enough information yet. I actually had 2 phone calls where I was talking to people who were the same way as I was when I moved up here. And this one lady I talked to has been up here for 10 years, and she said, "We're not part of Issaquah?" I said, "No." "Yes, we are." "No." And I said, "Technically, we're not. But we have the address, but we're not." So I was able to explain things to her, and she was very positive then. So we have a very strong population, at least I think we've been able to talk to on the hill, on the plateau, that are feeling very positive about moving and becoming part of the city of Issaquah. And we're quite excited about doing that. And we hope that the February date works. The sooner the better. We get away from unincorporated King County. I hope it doesn't snow in the next couple of weeks. You know, if it snows, we're in deep trouble, because they've told us already they ain't coming up to the hill. So, you know, I just hope that we can move forward and get a February election. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Dick LaRue?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor-elect, City Council members. Dick LaRue, my address 4652 238th Way Southeast in Brookshire. Consider myself to be an Issaquah resident. I left my jacket on, even though it's kind of warm in here, so you guys have no question about who to root for when the next football game is played. But I got one other thing to ask of you. Please, would you reflect the whole council vote that happened a while back that overwhelmingly said we want to put this subject to a vote? That's all we're asking. We've been at this off and on for near 10 years now. We just want to be part of your beautiful city. Thanks, and I look forward to February 11th. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else signed up?
Fair enough.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak who hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet? Thank you.
David Kapler, 255 Southeast Andrews Street. I think the council has seen my most recent letter on this. One clarification I'd like to make sure on the state law with allows state sales tax to subsidize annexations. Some parts of the studies that I've seen kind of shows that we can use that to make a profit, and it only can be used, as my understanding of the law and reading it, to make up for costs that are not covered by the annexation area. To suggest that this is going to be a profit from the annexation, I think is not fair. Huge future obligations you're assuming on transportation, especially as much as you say the Issaquah Fall City Road isn't that important. It is an important road for the area, and it's going to have to be addressed at some point. And the $38 million is getting to be an old number for that project. You might want to consider using 48th plus Brookshire as a different line for this, and people I talk to and more in the northern area are very much associated with Sammamish already. Their kids, their younger families, their kids are associated with all the different things going on in Sammamish, associated with the high schools and the middle schools and elementary schools. It's a whole different situation in the northern part of Klahanie. There's also the part that is the most difficult for the city to serve, and the most expensive part to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who hasn't had an opportunity to speak who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Mel Morgan. My address is 4018 240th Place Southeast, Issaquah, Washington. It would be nice to have the address actually count for something after 20 years. I don't live in Klahanie and I don't live in Brookshire, but I do live in the northern portion of the PAA, and I would suggest that, I know myself and my neighbors would like to be part of Issaquah, so we hope we get a chance to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present who wishes to speak, who hasn't had a chance? Second call, anyone else who wishes to speak? Third call, anyone else who wishes to speak? Hearing and seeing no one else who wishes to speak, the comment period is now closed. And now we will ask our Finance Director, Diane Marcotte, to speak to this topic.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you is a resolution that would be recommending an election on February 11th for the residents of the Klahanie Potential Annexation Area to consider annexing into the city of Issaquah. In addition to the vote of annexing in, they would also be approving acceptance of our existing outstanding debt, as well as the pre-zoning that we went through in September and October. To get us to this juncture where we're at today, this has been a very long and deliberative, as well as a very open and public process in working both with the city of Issaquah community residents and citizens, as well as Klahanie. We've been very thoughtful in our process. We've done considerable amount of research and analysis to support the recommendations that the administration is bringing forward to you tonight. With that, I will keep this short because we have been presenting a lot of information over the last 17 months nearly, as far as where we are at tonight. As the mayor indicated, we received some additional clarifying information late last week, both from the county council, legal counsel, as well as our legal counsel, as well as the King County clerk. And as a result of getting additional clarifying information, we became to understand that the county council wasn't having any other meetings for the rest of the year, so that necessitated us bringing forward the special meeting to you tonight. Originally, we were under the assumption we had until December the 27th. So we said, it's regrettable, but it's fortunate we came to understand the process. Thank you.
Thank you. This is, do you have any questions, I guess, before, of the finance director? Okay. This is coming with a recommendation for motion to approve the date of an election. And I will ask the council how you wish to proceed on this. Councilmember Winterstein?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I would move to approve resolution number 2013-20, requesting that the King County Director of Elections hold a special election February 11, 2014, for the purpose of placing on the ballot a proposition concerning the annexation of certain property known as the Klahanie Annexation Area and assumption of existing city indebtedness by property within the Klahanie Annexation Area if annexed.
Second.
Moved by Winterstein and seconded by Butler. The item is now open for discussion and questions amongst the council. Councilmember Scher.
Thank you. Guess I'll go first. By now, my opposition to this annexation is well documented, and despite there being no refutation of my prior analysis and points raised on the subject, the drive to move full speed ahead with the February vote is clear. Tonight, I offer some additional points as to why this proposed ballot measure is not in our best interest, and it's not, in my opinion, even in Klahanie's best interest. First, I must note the haste in which this special meeting was called, however inadvertent and unfortunate the timing may have been. At the last announcement of committees and reports, the public was informed we would be getting an update on the annexation effort. At 4 p.m. last Friday, there was suddenly an announcement of tonight's meeting and a bill came forth. Now, I don't understand how the county council's deadline became quite so suddenly known, but we've not heard a lot of comments tonight. I counted 5. And it doesn't seem like there's been a full opportunity, even though this has been a fairly long process, to actually comment on the substance of this particular ballot measure. Secondly, the costs of a potential annexation are already being felt. The 2014 Issaquah budget includes $120,000 for an annexation analysis, which is above and beyond the cost of the Nesbitt study that we already incurred. So now we're already fairly deep into this in terms of cost, and there hasn't even been a formal decision by the residents of Klahanie. Third, I believe Klahanie itself should be given a choice of jurisdictions to consider annexing to, which this ballot measure does not encompass. I again ask you to look at the geography of our city limits. There's a map right behind me. It's up to the upper right-hand corner. You can't really see it from where you're sitting because it's shaded in white. But right up there, there's only a tiny little piece of the PAA that's contiguous with the borders of Issaquah. That's not at all like South Lake Sammamish, South Cove, and the South Lake Sammamish Triangle that was annexed in 2005. That's not at all like other annexations that have come into the city in the past. This is not contiguous whatsoever. Additionally, at a previous meeting, it was expressed that Issaquah would not commit to any specific road project improvements, even the miles of substandard pavement not identified as funded in the Nesbitt study. And one need only look to the Providence Point intersection realignment or Lake Sammamish Parkway improvements near South Cove for the impact of annexed neighborhoods not receiving road projects that they desire. It further appears that our neighbors in Sammamish, who have no bonded indebtedness, would not even need the state annexation sales tax credit, as we would, to support Klahanie's infrastructure. In sum, increasing our carbon footprint, stretching city services while delaying important spending on projects already within our limits, and denying Klahanie residents an opportunity to choose their destiny is, in my opinion, a regrettable decision that I cannot and will not support. Thus, I will continue my resolve as the minority voice against this course of action. Thank you.
Thank you. I will take that as being in opposition to the resolution to set the date.
It is.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or discussion? Councilmember Winterstein.
I certainly do support the resolution. I made it, and of course, I think it's really important that our constituents and members of the viewing public in here tonight to know that I also view, without a shadow of a doubt, that we are denying nothing to nobody. In fact, we are giving access to the question that we were asked. And so by the resolution of asking the county to put it on the ballot for February 11th is exactly how our country works. It follows the laws. And so this is not denying. This is actually granting a vote to people who have asked for a vote. And it's wonderful that this date of February 11th that this resolution proposes will give the residents of that area this opportunity, and because it does rest with them, and I'm glad we're giving them that opportunity. I'm kind of repeating myself, but we need to look at the $38 million too, because that's 5 projects, and they're not all within the annexation area. So that misinformation is unfortunate.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Butler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council made a decision back in July to go forward with annexation. The Boundary Review Board spent 2 meetings in Issaquah and unanimously supported Issaquah assuming the responsibility. This proclamation tonight, or this resolution tonight, is just the next step in a process that we are moving towards, and I believe from what we heard this evening, the residents in the potential annexation area have waited long enough. Let's put it to a vote so that we can settle this issue. I will be supporting the motion.
Other questions or discussion? Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I haven't changed my support either since the July vote. I think the only thing that's changed for me is the Boundary Review Board hearing, that process. And from what I understand, Issaquah received incredibly high praise for the presentations and the professionalism that we presented. And so I'm proud to be a part of this city, and I know that there are a lot of people who are excited and anxious to be a part of the city. And so the vote, I agree with Paul, on February 11th is an important one, and it does provide that opportunity for the decision to finally be made.
Any other discussion or questions? Is the council ready then to proceed on this motion to approve resolution number 2013-20 as just described and discussed? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so that was 5 in favor and 1 opposed. In opposition, Councilmember Scheer. That was the sole purpose of this special council meeting. Was the only item of business that could be addressed during the special council meeting. And because it has been addressed, we are now adjourned at 6:23.
I'll call to order the Council Committee work session this December 9th, 2013. There are 2 items on the agenda this evening. One is a communications update, and the second is an Eastside Fire and Rescue interlocal agreement update. Beginning with the communications update, we have Autumn Monahan, our communications manager, Warren Kagarai, our communications coordinator, and Tim Smith, our TV coordinator, here for the presentation. During the council's workshop, there was some discussion around a goal called community engagement. And I think we will hear some of the ways that in 2014 we intend to begin that effort. And for those of you that have seen the city's new website, which has been in operation for about a year, this is an opportunity for those at home watching this work session and for the council to review how that's working and is it meeting the needs of the community and the council and the city. So with that, Autumn, are you going to kick things off?
How'd you know? Yes. Hi. So again, my name is Autumn Monahan. I'm the city's communications manager, and I've invited the whole team here for the presentation tonight. We have about an hour, so we're going to run through things because we have a lot of information to share tonight. To start out with, though, I did want to address 2 items and 2 concerns that have come up with our website in the past year. The first is our search function. So when we first launched the website last November, so more than a year ago, we were using our new vendor Civic Plus's search function. And after about a month, we realized this was not meeting our needs. We were not getting the search results we wanted. So we integrated Google search into our website. And after a lot of testing in many months, those 2 programs did not play very well together. And a lot of that deals with how our website was built and then the navigation. So things that you would search for on Google were not coming up on our website. So the 2 systems don't talk very well together. But luckily, our vendor, Civic Plus, did launch a new search module just a few weeks ago. So we implemented that into our website. It's been about 2 weeks, and we're still in kind of the test beta mode for that. Some things we do like about this new search function is in the advanced search, there's a lot of different fields to help you narrow what you're looking for. Also here under content type, you can search by content. So if you only want to look for news items or calendar items, or you're looking for a staff member, you can narrow your results that way. And also, when you do your search, it tells you what type of item you'll be clicking on. So you don't have to go through a whole bunch of different links to find what you're looking for. You know you'll be finding a form under that link or a contact us under that link. The other thing that we like about using our vendor's search function is that we can see what people are searching for and keep kind of tally of what people are looking for and what words they're using, and then attach those words to the pages they're trying to find. So in the back end, there's a way for me to tag those so that we can link the search words people are using to the content they're trying to find. So, so we're still testing it. It's going to be an eventual process through search. It's you never always find exactly what you're looking for, even on Google. It's always an evolving process. So that is search. The second concern I've heard is about the type of content and how much content we have on our website, and concerned that people that are doing a lot of research are not finding a lot of archived items on our website. And I wanted to remind Council tonight that when we launched this project, 2 years ago now, our main goal was to provide the best online customer service possible. That was our main goal. And Tina and I've invited Tina tonight to come talk about this issue too. We worked on this project together, and we talked with lots of staff about what items are you seeing that are customer service issues? What kind of calls do you receive? What kind of emails do you receive? What are people looking for that we can provide online to reduce the amount of inquiries that people have? We also looked at a lot of metrics on our old website and saw what people were looking for. So that's why you see wedding and event rentals as a main link on our homepage, because that's one of our top pages to this day. So we did a lot of research on what people were looking for. This quote came from a study that was done this year at a conference that looked at human and computer interaction, and they did a study just on government websites. And this quote really struck home to me about the difference we're talking about tonight. Early government websites seemed to be built as if they were virtual file cabinets, offering people access to paper documents. Today, that metaphor is dead. A better metaphor is to think of websites as replacing the telephone. So what you're looking at our website is really an online customer service desk. That's what we're doing, and that's the purpose of our website. It is not to be a virtual file cabinet of all of our archived items. So why not just add all of our other content? Why not add virtual file cabinets to our website? It's a lot of noise. So the more content you have on our website, the harder it is to use the search function, and the harder it is to navigate to what you're looking for. Typically, you have 1 to 2 minutes when someone's visiting your website for them to get what they need before they leave, because people will just up and leave and try another way to find the information they're looking for. So we want to make sure we're providing the best online customer service possible very, very quickly. So the more stuff we keep adding to our website, all of that noise can sometimes detract from what people are looking for, which in our website are mainly parks and recreation programs, who's in our jail, how can they rent our Pickering barn for their wedding. It's a lot of the day-to-day operations and customer service we provide as a city. As you'll hear a lot tonight, communications lives a lot off of metrics. And this is just a visual to show that the top 20 pages on our website receive 40% of the hits. So it's, and again, like I mentioned, that's our park and recreation programs, it's police, we know what these pages are. And those are the most popular pages on our website. And if you see this tiny circle here at the very other end, this is the percentage of our page views on our agendas and minutes page in October. It's less than 1.5%. And I would guess that those are staff, council, Peter, and a few citizens who might be doing some intense research. So it just gives you perspective on what people are coming to our website for, and it is for those day-to-day items, and not so much doing a lot of that research. So, I've talked about the fact that we've been really careful on what we put on the website. That doesn't mean there's no content on our website. Since we launched a year ago, city staff have made 28,000 changes to the back end of our website. So that's updating calendar items, that's updating news items, that's making changes to our web pages. This is a lot of work. And it's key that we have information on our website that's current for people that are looking for it at that moment. And a story I like to tell is when we still had our old website, Project A, I got a call from a woman who had an old Christmas tree strapped to her car. And she was in the Highlands in some parking lot, and she goes, "Where's the drop-off area?" And I said, "I don't know." And she goes, "Well, there's a news item on your website." So I Googled it, and Google had captured a news item from 3 or 4 years ago. And even though there was an old date on it, she saw it and thought it was the new item. And went to it, and there was no drop-off. So we have to make sure that the items that are on our website are current for people, because they'll look at something for a few seconds and then move on with their day. So I've talked a bit about what our goal is with the website, and that is really for customer service and for people who are looking for kind of day-to-day interactions with the city. And a very different project is serving people who are doing research for the city, or on the city. So I've invited Tina to talk a bit more about, the idea of a virtual file cabinet. That is a separate project and one that the clerk's office would manage, because she is the one that holds the records for the city. So I've invited her to come talk a bit more about what that project would look like if it's something that's of interest to council.
Thank you. So I have 2 slides. I don't want to take away from the communications time, but I do want to give you just a top overview of records management systems and how the virtual filing cabinet comes into play. So there's some items listed here, so I'll just walk through those. So with records retrieval, you're talking about systems are best used for in-depth research, locating, responding to requests, whether it's the public, state auditors, or other staff. Indexing, so how we best organize our information, making sure that we're following the record series set by Washington State. It's a really critical element, making sure that we're following state rules. Retention schedule, well, how long do we keep the records for? We don't keep everything indefinitely, and doing so has risk associated with it. And let's see, we really want to make sure that we're destroying records at the right time. Classification, we want to determine what has value, what we want internally versus online. That's an access issue. And then making sure that we're looking at cross-departmental. We want to make sure that we work with other systems that are already in place throughout the city, and that ones that we are purchasing or new systems that we're adding, that they can work into a records management system as well. So we look for things that have open architecture and that can communicate with third-party systems. So when looking at basic components of a records management system, you want something that you can capture and import. So those are the tools that you would use. Methods for storing and archiving, indexing and retrieval to locate, distribution tools for exporting, and security to protect the document. There we go. So with it, equipment, project management, and funding. So this isn't new. It's items that we have identified this need in the 2008 Moss Adams strategic plan. It was a technology plan that we did. We looked at a council goal in 2011 that talked about the paperless initiative, and most recently the technology gap analysis that was performed in 2012. So while records management systems didn't receive the highest priority, it was identified as a need. We certainly are looking to provide citywide records management solution. We've looked at SharePoint initially as providing elements of that. We've also looked more recently at the Munis financial system, and is that something that we want to invest in that specific module or not? We're at the beginning stages of review. And of course, there's other systems. Laserfish is a well-known company name that's been known and heard of throughout the years. So it doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We certainly are. Examples of that are just at a smaller scale. So Trackit is used to deliver project information online, and we also use our meeting management system. And an example of that would be we've uploaded essential records to the File Pro component of our meeting management system, and that was possible through a grant that we obtained through the state archive office. So that was good. Our meeting management system also works with third-party systems. So if we get to the point where we have something more robust, we can plug that in and deliver our information electronically. So if you're looking for more information, I'm happy to come back. A committee meeting, a work session, I can bring the right people there. IT should be included, but I didn't want to take away from the communications element tonight. So if you have any questions or guidance.
Josh?
Thanks, Fred. I have two questions, two issues. One is, Tina, we copy you quite often, at least I do, on emails that we send to members of the public or correspondence that's outgoing, would it be a better use of staff time, particularly your time, if there was some separate email address set up within the city that could be copied to for record archiving purposes, as opposed to always naming you? Or is there a legal requirement that it has to be the city clerk that gets copied on those sort of emails?
Well, using the city clerk as the sort of secondary copy, it's sort of turned into a courtesy now. The system that we have, Barracuda, does capture any outgoing and incoming emails. So it does require some extensive searching. It does have some archive retention to it, but ultimately you want to take that system and merge it into a records management system for the city. So again, it's a siloed product, but you really want to put it in something that's citywide.
And then thank you. And my other question, maybe Autumn can address this because it goes back to the search issue that was raised. So I tried to find an old agenda bill and I picked a completely random number. I picked 5960 just out of the air. And it turns out that that was 2009 Arts Commission grant, something pretty esoteric, and I don't think a lot of people would be frankly looking for. But I did a Google search and I tried Issaquah AB 5960, and sure enough, there's the first few items on here, are links that purport to be, getting me to the bill. I tried Issaquah 2009 Arts Commission grants in Google, and that didn't really help me. So the agenda bill itself, very specifically, Google search got me to. When I tried the same thing on our city's search function, AB 5960 got me 3 results, none of which pertained to that bill. And when I tried 2009 Arts Commission grants, it gave me 50 results, none of which pertained to that bill. So then I looked at, the actual archive of agendas and bills, and unless you know the actual ordinance number or resolution number, it's sort of difficult to find. And so when we talk about archiving information and making it available to the public, the agendas start in 2012 when this effort started, but it's almost as if everything that happened before then is in the mist of history somewhere. So how do we get, or how much would it cost to allow the public to look for information prior to 2012?
So I heard 2 different questions, and the second one is probably it's better for Tina to respond to. But the first about the search function and using agenda bills to search. We just launched this new module a couple weeks ago, and what we need to do is all of the agendas and minutes are on that file pro system that Tina uses. That's on a separate website. So we're looking for ways to integrate the two so that the search function will pop up. The file pro search is very, very dynamic, and you can use any keywords, and I've had a lot of great success in finding what I'm looking for. But we're trying to find a way now that those systems can talk together. So that's an evolving project and one that we're working on now that we have this new search function up and running. And I'll let Tina answer the second question about 2012.
Yeah, I can't tell you the pricing, but that was your question about costs associated with it?
How do we do it, and if we can do it, is it a really expensive proposition, or can we just integrate and up it pops on the website?
Time and money. It's there's evaluation, equipment, project management, funding, and it's been identified. So we have information that we can bring to you that the experts have said, this is about what it costs, this is about, how much time it takes, you implement in phases,
I'll just say, I just think it's important for the public to be able to access agenda information prior to 2012, and it's really hard to do right now. Thanks.
Paul?
Okay, so thank you for this, because you named the very thing that we were struggling with, and that we do not have this records, or as you were calling this record management thing. So you named that's the issue. That's the very issue that you came to talk about. That's the very issue that he just asked about, which you had already talked about. And so you've named that. And so that's wasn't a goal of our website. So we can proceed from this, and I think we will look forward to talking with you more about that. And I'm also really satisfied to hear as well in that that you do need to integrate those two back-end search functions, right? You cannot, currently what doesn't happen is that we don't look inside the agendas and bills and doesn't do keyword search on that. You have to go to the Civic website to do that. So you recognize that, so I'm satisfied with that too, because that is exactly the functionality that's missing. The user experience should be, I'm on issaquah.gov, I do a keyword search, and if it hit a word inside a council packet, that shows up in the results. And if that's your goal, then we're on the right path. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to get on now with the rest of our communications presentation, and I'll invite Warren to come up too. We're going to do this together. So we launched our social media accounts back in April, and when we first started, Warren and I sat down and talked about our commitment to this project. And early on, we made the commitment this would be a 24/7 operation for us. So it's literally Warren and I, and we do give each other breaks at times, but we wanted to provide the best customer service possible online, and people don't only use Facebook from 9 to 5. They use it at all times, as we found out, as we know.
We do, yes, we've learned.
And, you know, a lot of other government agencies, if you look in their profiles, they'll say, we'll respond to you Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's not the interaction we wanted to have with our community. We had a commitment that once we had the resources to do this, we would do this right. So we'll show you some of our successes and some of the lessons we've learned tonight. So since we've launched in April, on Facebook alone, we've seen a huge growth in our followers. We have more than 1,600 likes now on our Facebook page. And this is just a fun visual to show you just that these are actual people. And these are people that aren't always coming to City Hall or coming to meetings, but we've been communicating with and growing relationships with, and it's been a wonderful adventure so far.
So here's where we are. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+, YouTube, Foursquare, and Vine. That's, from what we can tell, more than any other public agency in our area and perhaps in the region. The reason we're on so many is we wanted to capture folks where they were, literally in the palm of their hand in a lot of cases, on their devices, on their tablets, on their phones. So the best way to do that was to capitalize on all the platforms that we had available to us. So we don't use everyone in the same way. Sometimes you need a saw, sometimes you need a hammer. And we have learned through this process what works on some platforms won't work on another. So it's constantly an evolution of what's going to resonate with folks. For instance, we thought Instagram, which is primarily a photo sharing site, would be just a showcase for the beauty of our community. What we've learned is that we do a lot of interacting on Instagram. We let people know about our events, about our initiatives, and we answer a lot of questions. That's been a pleasant surprise for us.
Facebook?
So, quick question.
Yeah.
So, interaction. Do you track the interaction? We push information out. People respond to some of the things that we push out. And I'm sort of guessing that some people actually would use all of those in some way, some more than others, to interact with us on their own initiative. Is that a true statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's great. And so, what are they at?
What are they saying?
What are they saying?
We have an hour tonight to go over a lot of these things with
We've
you guys.
got a lot of examples for you.
Well, this is good.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yes, you'll see plenty of that tonight. Just a quick overview of these tools. Facebook, I think most of you are on Facebook. We use this for more evergreen content. So, as you may know, when you look through your feed, if we post an item in a few minutes ago, that might not show up in your feed for 7 hours. So we try to post content that's not extremely, breaking news, that it's something that can live on in your feed for a couple days and it still makes sense. Twitter, on the other hand, is all about breaking news. It's all about in the moment. People need information right away. As Warren mentioned, Instagram is definitely image-based, and we're seeing that a lot of our younger followers are connecting with us on Instagram. Pinterest is an online bulletin board, if you will, where you can collect ideas and images and post them to your own board and then come back to them later, and I'll show you some examples of how we use that as an agency. I'll let you describe Google+.
Google+ does not have a lot of users, but one of the big selling points of Google+, probably the biggest selling point of Google+, is that it helps with your search engine optimization. And in layman's terms, that means your search results. Google is looking through your content that you post to Google+, and then if you have a presence on Google+, it's helping to rank you higher in results. So when we post something there, we get a better return when somebody Googles it and wants to find that content related to an event or an initiative that we're working on.
And then YouTube has transformed the way that we do video at the city and how we connect with people using video, and Tim will talk a bit more about that in a moment. And I'll let you describe the other two for us.
Foursquare is a location-based, it's a check-in service. We learned when we started our social media efforts back in the spring that a lot of city locations had been created on Foursquare, so we scooped those up and put correct information so people could get all the customer service information that they might want about, say, the barn or the farmer's market or the pool through Foursquare. And then we hooked it up to our other social media accounts, so when folks, say, go to the pool and want to check in, which is what you do on Foursquare, they then see that we have a presence on other platforms. So it's another way that they can connect with us through an app that they've already decided they want to use. Vine is incredibly popular with teenagers. I've talked to our youth advisory board about this. They love Vine. They live on Vine. It's an incredibly fun platform. It's 6-second looping videos. We use it occasionally. We're always looking for ways to use it more because of how it engages and how popular it is with folks.
So this was our first interaction on social media, and you'll see that it was back in March instead of April. We were getting our social media accounts set up, and someone tweeted at us and said, "Are you waiting to be verified by Twitter before you send out your first tweet?" And Warren and I went, "Oh my gosh, somebody found us and are interacting with us online." So we talked about it for a second, and we said, no, we're just getting ready and tying up some loose ends before our official launch. And he said, "We're honored to be your first tweet," and the hashtag making history. So there was a lot of excitement for us to start engaging online, and we could see that right away. So that was a really fun first interaction for us. So as far as growth, here is a chart of our Facebook followers, and you'll see that we have a steady growth, and we'll see a steady trickle that comes in, but you'll see these big jumps. One of them is Salmon Days. That was very, very popular for us, and we'll show you a bit about how we engaged with folks at Salmon Days. And the other is we purchased about $300 in ads this year to get people to know that we existed on Facebook specifically. And we had a long talk about that as far as using ads, and talked with a lot of other agencies that as you're building your base for followers, people don't always know you're out there. So once you get that base going and people are interacting with you, then their followers and their friends start to see that you also exist, and that only raises your profile. So we've seen a huge success in just a minimal amount of money. The way that we've described it is, how much do you spend at one public meeting on staff time alone for people to sit around and wait for people to come give us input? And we have these people interacting with us now on a range of topics. So we've found it's been really well worth it.
Twitter, we've also got steady growth. Twitter's a little harder to capture followers nowadays, and it's almost cost prohibitive to advertise, so we haven't gone the advertising route there. But we have noticed where we do get jumps is when there is breaking news in Issaquah. Whenever there's a power outage, we'll have questions. We had an incident at the high school that we'll talk more about in a moment where we got a lot of attention. And as Autumn mentioned earlier, it is primarily a breaking news tool, and that's when we've noticed our folks coming on board and starting to follow. It's during those breaking news events.
So we guarantee that our followers will jump once there's a snow event or a flood or any kind of emergency event. So we haven't had one of those yet, but we know that's when we'll see a lot more followers. So here's some of our most popular interactions. Oh, sure.
So that raises an interesting question, because you are not emergency management, right? Or are you?
I'm the official PIO within our...
So under emergency situations, I mean, it's still an emergency in town, and so that is the most direct route. There is no other kind of or kind of or organization change or responsibility change that has to happen to get emergency information out through these channels.
Nope,
in a most timely manner.
And
okay.
we had a retreat in talking with Brett Heath and our emergency management team about the whole other layer now of interacting on social media. It's great that, well, we talked a lot about priorities. So I have priorities when there's an incident on what tools I use first. And it used to be our website, and now it's Twitter. So, and as I was going to describe too, we've had a few incidents where reporters have called me on a breaking news story, and I'll say, follow us on Twitter. Here's our handle. That way I can reach not only reporters, but our followers at the same time. So I've been educating internal staff for a while now about the idea of the death of the press release. Whenever I have news now, I don't pull up a Word document with our letterhead on it, write a press release, and send it to reporters. All of that information is pushed automatically online. It's on social media, or it's through our website, e-news. So So it's a much more powerful tool, and a lot of reporters prefer working through Twitter than even getting emails now. So, so anyway, as we talked about what our priorities are, first would be Twitter, and the second would be our website. And then depending on what kind of emergency it was, would also, the amount of communication tools I would use would change. So, but there's no change in that process. It's still Warren and I. But I do have another person now to help me on the 24-hour shifts. So what's popular? This is a metric from our Facebook account that shows you the average reach on different types of posts that we have posted on Facebook. Video and photos are way more effective in communicating than on links and text. And you can see that if we post a video on our Facebook page, the average reach is about 5,000 people. If we post an image, it's about 800 people. And if we just post a link, that's about 400 people. So an example of this is we had a windstorm a few weeks ago, and we wanted to get some information out on Facebook about here's the number you call if you have a power outage. But instead of just writing that as text or putting it up as a link, Warren and I talked about it, and we took a photo of some leaves to show that it was windy out. And that was more effective in a couple different ways. One is the algorithm of Facebook that...
Nobody understands it exactly. It is proprietary, and if we did understand it, we'd probably be working excuse me, at Facebook. But the way Facebook ranks post, if it's, first of all, if it's a video or if it's a photo, it's going to get ranked higher than just a link because there's an invitation there to interact with it. A link, you might click it, but all of our metrics say that if you just post a link, they're probably not going to click it. So the algorithm takes what you put on Facebook, it figures out what its potential popularity would be, and then it starts to rank it. So we knew that if we posted this safety message with a photo, that we were going to reach more people than if we just posted a link or a text or a piece of text that said, it's windy, be careful. So what we did, Autumn ran outside, got the photo, we crafted our message, and then we went out with it. And we ended up reaching several hundred people, whereas if we'd just done it with a piece of text and a link, we probably would have only reached about 100 people.
And if you think about it on the way you interact on Facebook, I don't read through a lot of text. I scroll through my feed, and sometimes I'll look at an image, or sometimes I'll play a video, but I rarely read a whole bunch of text. And so it's kind of it's the way that communications is happening these days online. It's a lot more visual than it is using text.
So as I alluded to earlier, we had a spike in Twitter followers this day, October 7th. And what had happened was there was a lockdown at Issaquah High School and the other schools on 2nd after somebody called 911 and thought they had seen a man with a gun. Now, we were monitoring all of the Twitter chatter about this because there were students in school who were tweeting about it. There were parents who were concerned about it. They're tweeting to the news stations. They're asking what's going on. So I worked with police and figured out what we could say that wouldn't compromise what they were doing and got this out as quickly as possible. As you can see, it started to take off. People started favoriting it, retweeting it, interacting it, asking follow-up questions. And then what we were able to do when we got calls from media, this was all the information we had. And our police were engaged in the incident. So when media called, we could direct them here and say, this is all that we have. But in addition to alerting media, we were able to reach everybody in our community who was asking questions about it in real time as it happened.
So I bet council remembers this image. Council received a lot of concern about this sign when it went up on Newport earlier this year, and we were under an active investigation with our police department. So crafting a message as far as a response was pretty difficult because we didn't want to compromise the investigation. Once an arrest was made, we did post this online to kind of close the loop with people and say there was an active investigation, there was an arrest, an action was taken. This was also very popular because of the image, and also people recognized it because they've been driving by it. And it was one of the first times that we sat down with police and talked about what was appropriate to post and what wasn't. And you'll see on this image, we cropped out the image that was on the sign and the phone number for it too. So it was enough where it was an identifier, but at the same point, we were just making sure that we were still being appropriate in what we posted online. This is our most popular video to date. Hope that it loads. which literally took off online. It went very viral. One is that we had communicated with internal staff about our work on social media, and when they saw this video, and while they were joking about it within the department, someone called us and said, hey, this might be really cool to put online. So it was great that we get our internal staff involved, and they're the ones that are doing the day-to-day work that have these stories we can tell. Secondly, this video was great in that it was organic. It was from our security cameras. We didn't do some, fluffy interview with our police department about community policing. We showed it. So that made people really excited too. And I think in the end, we can't show you all the comments tonight, but that week was a really fun week on social media, and the amount of people who said, I love our police department, I love the city I work for, or that I live in. This is such a safe community, and thank you for your community policing. A lot of people knew the officer personally, so it was just a very successful video. In the end, it had more than 20,000 views.
These are some of our most popular images on Instagram. Autumn and I talk a lot about the battle between personality versus pretty. A lot of what you'll see from other public agencies on Instagram are professional photos that they've then asked for the photographer for permission to repost. And it's gorgeous. I mean, they're beautiful photos, but you don't really get a sense for what the personality is of the community and what people are engaging on, what the place looks like, what the real feel is. So what we've tried to do is the two of us, and we've also asked staff for when they see things that are interesting to capture them and send them to us so we can post them. We've tried to give you a real feel for what life is like in Issaquah and what we've got going on here. So we've got salmon days, we've got our market, we've got just beautiful scenery around town, events, and as I mentioned earlier, we use this a lot to promote what we've got going on, and it really resonates with folks.
And this has been the platform that's been most successful in interacting with people around the globe. So we've had interactions with...
We've gotten attention from the American Cancer Society when we had some photos from Relay for Life. The Hermitage Museum in Russia interacted with us on a photo, which we thought was fascinating that they managed to find it. But it's been really cool to see, not only around the globe, the fact that people are engaging with these photos, but in Issaquah, we're getting a young audience. We're getting a lot of students from the high school. We're getting a lot of young families who we might not connect with otherwise, who might just be too busy to interact with us in a traditional way, who are now comfortable asking questions and talking to us through this medium.
I'll let Warren tell this story.
The snake. So back in July, we had a power outage, and we reached out to PSC. We wanted some more information about why the power had gone out that we could share with our residents. And I got an email back, and it said, well, it's interesting. We had a snake that caused the outage. And I asked for some more details and got a response. And then Autumn and I sat down and thought, well, how can we share that message in a creative way? The power outage was, by that point, a couple days in the past, but people were still curious as to why the power had gone out. So we sat down to Photoshop and modified a sign that you would see telling you not to get shocked, and we put the snake in. We posted this to social media and just sort of watched it go viral. People were fascinated by this. They had lots of questions. We had fun with the post that we put with the photo, a lot of S jokes, a lot of elongated snake talk. And it was really interesting to see how people responded and their level of curiosity. And we later heard from PSE that they found this internally and they liked it. They thought it was a fun way to share a message.
And this is a good description, you'll see this throughout our presentation, of we're providing, this is the term I use all the time, but we're providing a dessert and then slipping in the vegetables. So we're providing a really funny image or a cool video, but there's always a message behind it of something we're trying to reach out to. And the message here was there's power outages even in summer. So you need to be prepared at all times, not just when there's a windstorm coming up. But we have to do that in a really, sometimes funny and sometimes engaging way to make sure that people find it interesting. So here are some examples of how we are actually an online customer service desk for the community. This woman was watching one of the council budget study sessions a few weeks ago, and noticed that as you guys were talking, she couldn't see your nameplates because you don't have nameplates down on the floor. And so she sent this to our Facebook account, and it was at 7:30 at night on a Friday. So at that point, I didn't have the answer. So my first response was, I'm looking into it, and here's what I guess. It's usually a less formal meeting, but I'll look into it. Then a few days later, when we were all back in the office, I talked with Tim, and it just happened to be a technical hiccup, because typically on ICTV, your name comes up on the screen, but it just wasn't that night. So as you can see here, she liked both of my responses, and it's a question that she probably wouldn't have called about or sent an email about, but just had a curiosity's sake, she asked about it, and we were able to respond to it pretty quickly.
So this came in through Twitter back in July. I'll give you some setup on this. We weren't connected to this person at the time, but one of the things we do on Twitter specifically, but on all of our platforms, we're always searching for the word Issaquah. And because it's such a distinctive word, whenever somebody tweets it, they're probably talking about us, unless they're talking about the ferry. But 90% of the time, they're talking about us. So this popped up in our search feed with a photo of a bike lane that was overgrown. And we immediately thought, well, we should be able to address this in some way. So we connected with the person and asked for some more information. And she did us one better. She sent us a link to a Google map that showed exactly where the problem was. And we were able to connect with code enforcement and help address the problem.
This is one of my favorites. And this citizen had called our Parks and Recreation Department and had asked for a long time for a garbage can to be placed in one of our parks. Once we placed the garbage can, he went back and had his friend take a photo of him with the garbage can, and then sent us a message on Twitter that said, "Me and the city of Issaquah make a good team." So we loved that he took that much time to go take a photo afterward to show his appreciation. And it's the customer service we do all the time, but we don't always hear that feedback on. So that's fun to share with staff afterward, that he really appreciated the garbage can in the park.
So one of the other things we're able to do on Twitter is or on all social media rather, is correct misinformation. And in this case, we woke up to this recently, but Tracy is the traffic reporter for King 5. She has about 8,000 followers, and what she says goes. People look to her for their morning commute, their afternoon commute. She's very influential on Twitter. So her commute that morning took her through Issaquah, and she thought that she saw a broken pipe and water running down the street. We knew from working with our Public Works Operations Department that it was water main flushing that had been scheduled, and we'd noticed and we'd let people know was coming down the pipe, to use a cliche. So we were able to just double check with PWO, realize that there was not a problem, and let her know what was going on. She was appreciative that we were able to correct that information, and most importantly, she followed us. So now, when she has future questions about the city of Issaquah, about traffic, or about anything that's related to us, we have a relationship, and if she wants to ask us a question, it's easier for her. She knows we exist, and she knows that we'll respond to her in a fast way.
As Warren mentioned, we always search the word Issaquah, and sometimes when people are visiting our community and they'll talk about being here in Issaquah, we'll start a conversation with them. We try not to be too creepy about that, so only in certain situations. But here's an example where a couple that are Seattle bloggers were visiting our hatchery, and we said, "Thank you for sharing the photo." And they responded back to us, and then they followed us. So once again, we've created a relationship now with online bloggers about Issaquah that we would not have connected with before. It's also a great way to welcome people to our community, too, who are just visiting. It puts kind of a human touch to it.
I'll start this one out.
Okay.
So we get a lot of useful information. We get a lot of positive feedback. Occasionally, we will get questions about why we've done something a certain way or criticism. In this case, this was the day that we were opening Confluence Park, and we wanted to do a last-minute push to get folks to come out. And so, about 3 or so hours before the party started, we posted this to Facebook, and then we heard back from a citizen. And she was upset that we hadn't given more notice. Well, the problem here was that we'd been giving notice all summer. We'd been talking about how the park was going to open. We'd posted video. We'd been posting photos as the process went along and as we neared opening day. But unfortunately, because of that algorithm that I mentioned, this post was the one that she saw. She didn't see the other stuff. So 3 hours before go time, she's learning about this event, and she wants to come. She doesn't have time, so she's upset. So we were able to connect with her and help her get another way to get information as it happens, and that's through our e-notify system, through our website. She liked that post. She liked that response, so we thought that was nice. She acknowledged that we responded to her. And then on the same post, we had some comments about how we had to tear down the barn in constructing the new park. And we were able to offer some more information about why that took place. And then another citizen was able to weigh in on some of the history of the site. So it was a great way to get a dialogue started about something that, again, somebody probably wouldn't have called about, but we were able to connect with them anyway.
So, as Fred mentioned, a lot of this involves citizen engagement, and this was Eileen's goal for the coming year. And in talking with Eileen, one of your concerns is citizens can have a hard time following an agenda bill from start to finish and knowing when they can engage with us and provide you feedback. So we've talked a lot about, and we have staff meetings every week where we go through a council agenda, we go through major projects that the city's working on, we go through community events, and we look at what items are our priority to be promoting. So here's some examples of where we've done that citizen engagement, or said, here's a time in the process we'll need your input, or here's what's happening now, so that you don't have to follow an agenda bill or the council committee process all the way through, but instead, here's your time. So the first one is the budget process, and Warren covered the budget process on social media from start to finish. He live tweeted the mayor's budget address, and then covered it all the way until you pass the budget. And we use hashtags on Twitter and actually on all of our social media accounts. When you create a hashtag in social media, that becomes a link, and when you click on that link, it provides you the entire conversation of everyone that's also used that hashtag. So it's a good way for community dialogue to happen. So we create hashtags for certain events, and this one was for our budget, so we titled it Is Budget. And here was somebody who had a concern about, is the budget process going to include any money for making welcome signs to Issaquah? So we had a lot of those types of questions of people coming back and forth on what was in the mayor's proposed budget, what was not. So that dialogue was happening online pretty frequently.
One of the other things that we reached out to folks for feedback on was the skate park, which you guys decided you'd like to move forward with replacing the skate park. We created a hashtag, #IsSkate, and asked people to use that as they were conversing with us. And we were able to sort of start the dialogue with this person. She wanted to know if we had potential sites already in mind. And that's where we sort of threw it back to her and said, what do you think? And it was a great way to get what she was thinking and collect that and pass it along to our park staff as they start this process.
Here's an example where we were just getting into the marijuana zoning, which was very, very popular online. People did have a lot of input on that, and we used the hashtag #JointEffort13. And we posted the draft regulations back in July, and Gabriel here said, seriously, not in residential areas, that's insane. Post areas on your GIS system for public comment. So you'll see it took us 3 days, but we then posted a map that showed the proposed zoning so that you could actually visually see it instead of trying to read the proposed code. And he got back to us and said, thanks for the follow-through, I didn't expect you to actually remember. Hashtags are also a great way to have community dialogue at events. So this one we use the hashtag BBQA, and in our handouts we encourage people to interact with us online. So people were taking photos and then we were talking with them during the event. So it was a really fun way to get engaged even if you're not talking to a person one-on-one. And then we can dialogue with this person and use these photos too if we want to for further promotions.
This is another example of where we created a hashtag to foster the conversation. This was National Night Out. The hashtag we came up with was Party with Police. That was popular with folks, which was great. That was our goal. And this was just a nice way to hear back from her about what they like doing, and she shared this beautiful photo.
This was a really fun project we did in the summertime. Art East came to us, and they were doing their Menagerie Art Festival, and they wanted to do a photo contest, but they wanted to do something different online. So they came to Warren and I and said that they understood the city was active in social media, and did we have any ideas? So we proposed doing the contest on Instagram. So the participants were given a word or several words, and they were challenged to go out into Issaquah and take photos of what that word represented to them as an image. And then we asked them to hashtag it with Capture Issaquah. So that way we could search for all of the entries via Instagram, and we had about 70 entries. And then Warren and I were the judges, and then the winning entries were then displayed at the next Art Walk. So it was a great way to interact with people online and then also in person during Art Walk. So it was a fun partnership that Arties would like to continue next year.
This is our latest effort. As you're familiar with, the police department during the holiday season will step up its patrols in our commercial areas. And one of the things that they do is if they see that you've left your vehicle unlocked, if they see that you've engaged in unsafe behavior by leaving packages on your back seat or visible, they'll leave a card with some information about how to avoid that next time and how to shop safely. So police came to us earlier this fall and wanted to figure out a way to interact with people a little more during this process. So we came up with the idea of, instead of a business card, let's give them a gift tag from Issaquah Police. And we knew that that would be provocative and that folks would want to know why they were getting something from the police and why does it look like a gift card. So if you flip this over, there's a hashtag, and we encourage people to use the hashtag when they got one or when they saw somebody getting one. And we've been monitoring for folks using this, and then one day we were looking on Instagram and this popped up. And we immediately wanted to know how this came to be. So we commented and we said, it looks like somebody is on the naughty list, which is what it says when you flip this over. And we were able to start a dialogue with this person, explain what it was. So it was just a great way of seeing this campaign through.
So while we do see some negative comments on our social media accounts, it's not as much as we anticipated. So I think we were thinking the worst when we started. But in the end, people really love Issaquah. And there is a lot of positive comments that come through every week about our community. Here's one of a person that just reached out to us and said that he's trying to relocate here, and I love this town. It's clean, friendly, nature all wrapped up in hospitality and respect. That was not something we even engaged with him beforehand. He went to our page and he posted this. So we see this quite often of people who just love living here.
This was a citizen last month who saw the street sweeper and wanted us to see a photo of it. She was just so happy that it was that fast after a windstorm. We thought that was great.
Here's an example again of where we found this post, not because we were already interacting with her online, but we searched for the word Issaquah. And this is an amazing circle that happened. She was using our new public Wi-Fi to post on Twitter that she was happy that she could use it online for free, and then posted a photo to Twitter. So it was an awesome loop of the service that happened there, that number one, she was able to use our Wi-Fi, and then number two, she started to engage with us online.
So this was October 7th. That was the day of, number one, the mayor's budget address, and number two, it was the day that the high school went into lockdown because of the man with the umbrella. So that was a busy day on social media for us. There was a lot of activity, Twitter especially. And that evening we got a tweet from one of our residents who was appreciative that we had been able to keep them in the loop as everything happened. So just to reiterate, Twitter is a great real-time tool to deliver breaking information, either on a police activity or a policy initiative, all at once. And like I mentioned before, you've got it in the palm of their hands, and they feel comfortable interacting with you.
So you'll see this video later, but Tim did a wonderful video about from our zombie walk that also went quite viral. And this is an example of where one of our followers who does not have English as his first language, at least on Facebook, shared this photo. And in Spanish, it's translated to, "So I like where I live because they all agree to do stuff like this." So this shows the power of video and of images that can tell the same story to people that aren't even speaking English. So as Warren mentioned, we have the most amount of accounts that I can think of as a local agency here. And we're definitely a leader when it comes to Instagram in the region. Sabra, who is the Director of Online Communications for the City of Seattle, started following us on Instagram and then invited us to come do a presentation to all the PIOs in Seattle about our work on Instagram. And since then, they've launched a few of their own accounts, so that's been fun to watch. And then just last week, Tina hosted a conference of local city clerks, and we went and spoke to them too about our efforts. So it's been fun to get involved in that community and learn from each other and kind of share our experiences.
So one of the great things about social media and the interaction between our website and our social media accounts is that we can do campaigns from start to finish. And the first big one that we rolled out was when we were at your direction, collecting information for potential park bond projects. So this was back in early summer when we wanted to hear from folks what they wanted to see in a potential park bond. So this is a sampling of the images that we put together to share across all of our social media platforms, letting people know when they could come and physically say what they wanted, but also directing them to how they could do it online and on social media. And we also were able to pull another lever at our disposal, and that is our e-news system. And we sent this out to all of our Parks and Rec subscribers, which I think ended up being about 3,000 people, encouraging them to come to the meeting, to interact online, and to share on social media. And so that was another way that we were able to get information from folks about what they wanted. And then when council decided to move forward with a park bond, we put together a mailer that was sent to all of our voters here in town. So that was a physical component, and again, it directed people where they could find more information online and how they could connect with us. And we also produced a video that showed people what the projects would be if the bond were to pass.
It's images, it's video, it's all very visual. And this was the last.
This is the last image we shared about the park bond, announcing that it had been approved.
So another campaign we worked on very heavily that was very rewarding to us as far as followers was Salmon Days. Here's our booth at Salmon Days, and we had a line, a very exhausting line for a lot of the event. We had two components to our booth. One was a spinning wheel where you could get a prize, and the other was a green screen where you could come take your photo or have your photo taken with a really large salmon. So here's some of the photos that we took. This was a great way to kind of break the ice and start talking with people. And then when they wanted their photo, we gave them a little sheet that said, go to our Facebook page, and then they could tag themselves in our post. So that got them engaged online to come find where we are on Facebook. And then once they tagged themselves, then all of their followers saw that they had tagged themselves at a City of Issaquah event, and then they could see that the city was also on Facebook. So that saw a huge spike, and it was a very creative way to get more followers. We also, at our spin booth, gave out little trees that people could plant. And with those trees, we said, if you go home and plant them, take a photo and then hashtag it. And we used the hashtag #IzzyLegacy. So here's a picture of a little girl taking her tree home and planting it at home. So that was really fun to see that loop happen.
One of the other ways that we've used social media is to reach out to businesses that are either interested in Issaquah or have recently relocated to Issaquah. Over the summer, we were messaged by Lost Treasures, which is a thrift store here downtown, and they just wanted us to acknowledge them on Twitter. Okay, well, we're happy to do that, but would you like to meet somebody from our economic development team? And they loved that idea. Excuse me. So later that day, I was able to connect with economic development, and we sent one of our staff members out, and she was able to meet them, hear their concerns, answer some questions for them. So it was a great way that we took something that was virtual. They weren't expecting a big interaction, and we were able to turn it into something that was able to answer all of their questions all within the same day. And then, as Autumn mentioned, sometimes we'll just welcome folks to Issaquah for coming here for Salmon Days or just to spend a weekend. We also do that with businesses when they open. So it was nice to interact with Mod Pizza, just to let them know that we were happy to have them. Regency Centers, which we're all familiar with, they're great on social media. We're able to interact with them on a frequent basis. And Top Pot Donuts, which is a leader on social media in our area, they've been always willing to interact on social media, so it's been fun.
People like donut news, I think. So now we're going to invite Tim to talk a bit more about our partnership as a team now, and how video has changed with our use of YouTube.
Sorry, I was just watching tonight's council meeting on my Android phone. because up to a year ago, you couldn't do that. Basically, you could use a desktop PC. If you were a Mac user, couldn't really use it. If you wanted to watch an archive video, it was a hyperlink buried on our old website somewhere. Now we use Ustream. You can use it on your iPhone, your iPad, your PC, your Android phone. You can see it anywhere. So that's one of the new things that we do. One of the other things that's been great about video is it used to live buried on the website and also live on the channel. But now it goes through Facebook, YouTube. It's on demand. You can see it when you want to. We also get feedback. We know who's watching it, when they're watching it, how many people are watching it, where I had never had that information before. Before this group was together, I'd produce it, it would go out, but we'd have no feedback, you know. So we still cover everything, still ends up on the channel. We still do Salmon Days, we still City Council, Planning Commission, Urban, you know, it's all on the channel, but it's also on demand. Citizens can get it at any time. So that's a really great thing, and it's easy to find. Do we want to go show the videos?
A few videos. So here's a few of our most popular videos. This one,
I went to a party and remembered what you said. You told me not to drink, Mom, so I had a Sprite instead. I felt proud of myself, the way you said I would, that I didn't drink and drive, though some of my friends said I should. I made a healthy choice, and your advice to me was right. The party finally ended, and the kids drove out of sight. I got into my car, sure to get home in one piece. I never knew what was coming, Mom, something I expected least. Now I'm lying here on the pavement, and I hear the policeman say, the kid that caused this wreck was drunk. Mom, his voice seems far away. My own blood's all around me, and I can try hard not to cry. I hear the paramedics say, this girl is going to die.
Well, there's a couple of great things about this video. This video was the DUI that EFR and IPD do every year up at the high school. It's a very powerful thing if you've ever been there and seen it. So we were able to go up there and produce a video. And I've done it in the past, and then it ends up on the channel. But we don't know if the target group sees it. But with Facebook now, we're able to send it out, and a different group of citizens are seeing it. And there was a great story behind this, is that one of the city's employees went home, and her granddaughter said, hey, did you see that video that the city produced on DUI? And she had not heard about it. So then the employee went and looked and found it, and then came back and told us about that interaction, is that we know it reached the group they were looking for. And also timing. We released it right before prom, and then again right before graduation. So with social media, we're now able to send these messages out in a timely fashion and really try and reach the groups that we're trying to reach.
so this second video, our police dispatchers came to me and said, next week is dispatch week. Can we do a news item about it? And I went, well, it's kind of boring. Sorry to say. Can we figure out another way to tell your story? Can we do a video? Can we talk a bit about what you guys do for our community? And so this was the result, and we're just showing you small clips of larger videos, but this is the example of the video we produced. And nowhere does it say, let's celebrate Dispatch Week. But instead it shows you what people are doing for our...
911. Okay, what's going on there? What's going on? 911, we need police paramedical. We had an accident here on Black Nugget Road, right behind Bud Mile. 911, you need police paramedical.
It sounded like 5 gunshots.
Okay, for around what location? Emergency, need police paramedical.
Patrol, it's just we're listening in on the domestic.
911's designed for emergencies, so people should call if they have any emergency or reporting an in-progress crime.
So that's just a small snippet of that video. It goes on, and there's stories of 911 experience, of dispatchers' experience, so it's a longer piece.
The next one's football.
Oh, okay. So right now, you're just going to see some highlights from something that we added this year. Last year, we did a pilot program. We did one Issaquah High School football game, and then this year, we did 3. We were going to do a 4th one.
And here's the zombie video we referred to earlier.
So that video goes on a little longer. There's a little more undead action later on.
So the next 2 videos are kind of what I was describing before as kind of the dessert. So these are the feel-good pieces that don't take a whole lot of time to put together and prepare. People love their friends. This is one we described. So instead of posting something on Facebook saying, "Fish are back," post this video. And then lastly, this one Tim put together in I don't know, the fall colors one in a very small amount of time. Sometimes we put things up and we realize that. So that's just a sample of videos that Tim's put together for us. It's been really fun to partner with him in using video in other ways, and it's been much more powerful for us on social media to communicate a lot of our messages. So there are 2 other platforms we want to just briefly talk about tonight. One of them was Pinterest, and this is the online bulletin board. Our most popular use for this so far has been with brides. So brides will be pinning wedding ideas, and each of these links go back to our website, so it drives people back to our website each time. Another area that we've been experimenting with is trails, so posting the variety of trails we have in Issaquah that people can pin it for later, and then when it's a nice day out, they can go to their Pinterest board and look up what Issaquah trail they want to explore that day.
Google Plus, it probably looks a lot like Facebook to you folks, but and functions a lot the same way, but as I mentioned, its main selling point is that it's helping with our search results, it's helping people find information. And we do get people that connect with us on Google Plus. Not a huge amount. We get a lot more on Facebook and Twitter. But if it's helping our search results, it's not time intensive, then it's a worthwhile venture for us.
So what's great about online communication is that we have data, as Tim mentioned. In the past 90 days, we've had more than 500,000 views of our content just on Facebook and Twitter alone. So it's been a very powerful tool. You can talk a bit about the metrics.
So this is who likes us on Facebook. Out of those 1,600 folks that Autumn showed you earlier, we note that audience is 68% female, 32% male, and most of those folks are within the age group of 25 to 54, which it's a pretty big chunk of our community that we're hitting there on Facebook. Twitter, it's kind of the reverse. It's mostly a male audience. The age range is more or less the same, but we've noticed that We do try to tailor Facebook content for women and Twitter content more for men, just trying to figure out what's going to hit better.
We also know when people are on Facebook. So the best time for us to post content on Facebook is 9 p.m. on a Thursday. We couldn't tell you why. I have theories that it's because most of our followers are parents and they've just gotten the kids to bed and now they're on Facebook. But who knows? But we have that metric to help us decide and really plan for when we're going to post information to reach the most amount of people. So if we have something really important that week to get out, we post it at Thursday at around 9 p.m.
So on YouTube, again, it's a mostly male audience. And if you tally up all those minutes, it's about 20 days of content that's been watched through our YouTube channel and also through our embedded videos that we've posted elsewhere on our website and around the web.
With Warren's great graphic design skills, he created a new e-newsletter for us that we send out to all of our email subscribers. And what's great about the system that we use is it gives us metrics on what people are clicking on when they get their e-news. And we found people were typically only clicking on the image or the video and not so much the text. So we're very, very flexible and we need to really adapt to our users. So knowing that images are much more effective, especially on social media platforms, Warren redesigned the e-news and we're having much more success when it comes to click rates.
And one quick note about e-news, that displays a lot better on a mobile device. And we also know that about half of the opens on our e-newsletter are occurring on a mobile device, most of which is an iPhone.
So we've talked a lot about social media today. There's been other things that are new from communications in the past year. We've launched our traffic cameras page on our website that integrates with our GIS system. We have launched a feature on our website called Check My Balance. People can check their balances for utilities. We talked a bit about Tina's File Pro system and integrating that into our website. And we've done the first step in that is that the past 5 meetings have both the packets and the minutes show up under each of those committees or council pages. This happens automatically, so as staff upload something to File Pro, to that archiving system online, it automatically feeds into our website, so it looks seamless. The key here is that we don't have 30 years of all the agendas and minutes and packets. It's just what's going on currently at the city. And that was Tina's project this year. Thanks to, again, to Warren's graphic design skills, we're doing a lot more printed materials. This was a handout at the Confluence Park opening. Tim and I launched a magazine show this year for ICTV it's about 30 minutes long and we have several segments to it, and our goal is to do one a quarter. And we've integrated Instagram into the bottom of our website. So Warren and I, we typically post to Instagram almost every day. And so this keeps our website fresh and up to date and very topical. So you can see when an event's happening or if there's a weather issue. And Instagram also allows you to do videos. So there's little videos here. What's great about this is that people can get to know Instagram even if they're not part of that platform by seeing it on the bottom of our website. As I mentioned before, our team meets every week and talks about what issues are going on and then what tools to use. So just as a reminder, we also have the Notify Me tool on our website. We have about 800 subscribers to that. And people have said, email me when there's a news item about Parks and Recreation, or email me when there's a police alert. So that's those 800 subscribers that have asked for that to be automatically sent to their email. Our request tracker is our web page where people can submit requests for filling potholes or do they have a code enforcement complaint. And we've had about 600 requests in the past year of items that people wanted the city to do. We still have our radio station. We have a VMS sign that we typically use for emergencies. Communications team is very active on any kind of community event that we have and any kind of printed materials that we can send out via mail. We're also really interactive with our local media, both the press and the reporter. And we have great relationships with other communication teams at in the community. So every month we have a Page and Connections newsletter. We're often in their e-news, same with the chamber or the school district. So we have great relationships with other audiences too. So ideas for the future, as we'll wrap up. One of them is to be active on Yelp. So Yelp is an online review tool, and people are now doing online reviews of our facilities. So we need to get in on that conversation. So that's one area we're going to explore in the coming year. Although we no longer have a printed newsletter, I'd like to do something at some point soon that's a tangible piece of paper people get in the mail, because not everybody, as we know, is on social media or on the web. So figuring out an effective way to do that that maybe isn't as as often as 4 times a year, but finding some way to get paper copy into people's hands. Tumblr is a new blogging tool that we are interested in. We're also developing a weather page for our website that has hyperlocal information on weather here. Next year, we're launching an intranet and internal e-news for our employees to increase communications internally. We've been talking about the idea of podcasts and figuring out what kind of things might be of interest to folks. And then Google Hangout is a very interesting idea, or something similar, in finding a program where we can have online dialogues with people to really increase citizen engagement online, and finding ways to have those conversations happen through other tools. So with that, are there any other questions?
Josh?
One thing that I wanted to share and maybe you can jot down a note about is you mentioned about the traffic cameras, and those are great, and it's great to have that functionality. Google has a traffic flow map, which interestingly has all of our major streets on it, and I don't know how Google gets that data, but it's Google, so they have it. It would be great if somehow that could be integrated with the camera page. Actually, the city of Bellevue does, and you could actually look at our traffic flow map through their site, but you can't do it through our site.
Okay.
So it could be useful for folks who are trying to figure out. And what's really cool is you can actually look at not just live traffic, but traffic at certain days and times at other days during the week. So, if you're interested in knowing what traffic patterns are like, but that's some information that I don't think we have through our site directly at this point.
That's a great idea. Thanks.
Other questions, Eileen?
Not a question, but just a comment. When this particular piece was proposed at our goal-setting session, you guys have far exceeded anything that I had envisioned. But it hit on so many of those pieces. It was like, the connections and the feedback between our citizens and the notify piece. How wonderful is that going to be to allow the citizens to be able to be notified of something coming up? And the request tracker, I'm just going down, I've got all this whole page list of different pieces that you have hit on that I've heard from so many of our citizens as we're going through, as I talk with them, wanting to be able to be better connected. And yay, congratulations. I think you've absolutely hit so many of them. But I think the one is to be able to be so quickly engaged back and forth with people and have them send you something and instantly they have a feedback already coming back to them in regards to what it was they were looking for. Where before so many times it would take us days and weeks, and I would get that second email from the citizens going, well, I haven't heard from you, Mm-hmm. So congratulations. It's marvelous. Thank you.
Other questions? Paul?
+1.
Any other comments? Stacy?
Well, I +1 also. I was wondering, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but compiling information about things that we can do, maybe suggestions or things that you're learning from folks who we probably don't normally engage with about how we might be able to do things a little different or a little better now that we are engaging with people that I'm sure we weren't engaged with before.
So as you guys receive your new tablets, we're steadily going to have a lot of those apps for social media on them. So hopefully you guys can become engaged too online. And then Warren and I have talked about it. Now that we have a good base and we've got a good program going, we've been talking about reporting. So I don't want to overwhelm you guys because it is a lot of content every week. But our idea was that we'd pick something, a highlight of the week, and send it to you as just an update. And then maybe once a month or so we could do more of a report for you on kind of what kind of engagement we're having with folks, if that's something that's of interest to council. Because that does close part of the loop too, that you guys see that feedback as well.
Other questions or comments? Mary Lou?
Autumn, I had a question about the one where it's report tracker, the one for calling in on potholes and things like that. So you're keeping statistics on per month, how many people have called in or emailed in or filed a report. Can you also tell us that when they got a response, like did they get an initial response that we've received this on a certain date, and then when they get a follow-up response, that's information we can look at?
Yeah, and we do have that information. It varies by the type of request. If something is about a really specific traffic issue, that may take a while for our engineers to get an answer back. But it's our goal that there's a response that's by a human within 24 hours. So it says, we've received your request, it's going to take this process to look into it, or it simply is, I've already taken care of that web issue that you had an issue on. So it varies by the request, but we do have that data.
And then I'm assuming you get many of those by either email or phone now as well. So is the new online version just a small percentage of the requests for help?
It is. And some people who receive questions via phone will enter it into the system.
Oh, great.
To do it that way. And then we've also talked with ops and engineering. A lot of times engineering has requests for operations about things they want. So we're working on a way to use this tool so that they can communicate with each other and track internal requests too.
Oh, that's
so
super. Great.
Other questions or comments before I check to see if there's anyone in the audience desiring to comment on this topic? Is there anyone desiring? Please, Connie.
Yes, I go here. This is not non-address one. My name's Connie Marsh, and I think I need to send them my emails to the council to make sure I actually get a response back in 24 hours. That would be awesome. But anyway, there's a whole nother thing. So my communication with the city is still often frustrating. And I see a lot of the things, but mainly to me, they're puff and friendly and fuzzy. And I seem to want to engage with the city on how to make the city better all the time, at least from my own particular perspective. And it sounds like they're working on giving a more in-depth ability to get the information on the website in the future, as long as it's funded, et cetera. I personally have not had any success initiating anything on Facebook with the city. I type it in, it shows up for a second, I go back and it disappears. So I'm not exactly sure how to initiate something on the Facebook page that just doesn't get eaten alive. I've tried it with 3 different computers, and it seemed here like somebody's successful. I don't know how they're successful. You can comment on something that the city pushes out. So I'm interested on, I think it hit on the very last thing on the very last slide, how to engage a conversation so you can get a communication and a discussion happening, rather than just feeling like I'm being propagandized instead, because often it feels like propaganda to me. And I don't, okay. But I appreciate the YouTube videos. I think that's awesome. They're easier to get. You can get them anywhere. I have a hard time with the mobile website because I can't get still, if they haven't solved the problem, to be able to get to the calendar and to see when or where a meeting is. And if I'm somewhere without my computer, I can't know where I'm supposed to go. And I find that to be frustrating. And I think they know it's a problem. I just don't know that there's a solution there. So one of my favorite slides was 0.05% of the people is interested in council and agenda. And it seems like a goal would be to raise that number, because clearly you all are simply not sexy enough. There are not large enough pictures with little enough content on there to engage the public in our actual governance, which seems to be mainly the city's reason for being. So it seems like that is an obvious clue as to how to really engage the people in something that is a little more meaty. And so I'm sure you can all jog around and do all of these things. So I think it's fascinating to watch. I think it's pretty. I think it's nice to have people around the world checking in. I want to see the information that they're getting communicated to you guys during the budget session, so you can hear those voices at the proper moment in time for you to hear the citizens saying these things. I didn't see that come across, maybe it did. And so as I was watching this presentation, those were the things that came to my mind. So, well, this may be doing it for many. For me and my ilk, even if I'm only that 0.5% way up on that tilty thing, I'm an audience. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments. Is there anyone else in the audience desiring to comment? Seeing no one, then I thought that was fascinating and enlightening, and I learned a lot from it, and it really seems like we are moving in the right direction, and we are on the cutting edge of social media, and it's exciting. Thank you very much. Okay, our next topic this evening is an update on the Eastside Fire and Rescue Interlocal Agreement, and Paul, I believe, has a slide presentation and is going to lead this discussion for us. And there it is.
And if you thought what we just did was exciting, hold on to your seats. This one's going to be over the top. By the way, this is PowerPoint, and there's no animation. Well, there is some color. My gosh, this is going to be, I'm so last millennium. Holy cow. There's not a single hashtag or @sign or anything in here. So, yeah, so I prepared a presentation. I'm currently our council's representative on an ad hoc committee to advise the Eastside Fire and Rescue Board on changes to the interlocal agreement. We're doing this because the current interlocal agreement, 7-year contract, it's up at the end of 2014. Any member who would want to leave EFR has to give notification by the end of January 2014. So, the board and the various members of EFR for a while now have actually been considering certain changes, but we're down here the 11th hour, and in particular, one of our partners, Sammamish, has passed a resolution asking for specific changes to the ILA. And so that prompted a couple different activities, one separate activity was just making changes to the funding formula, which is part of the ILA. And we have already, I'm going to touch upon that. We've already taken action on that, and that one is behind us. But then there were 7 or 8 other issues that were more of terms of the ILA. Language in the ILA, and so that's what this ad hoc committee is working on. And so this is my presentation, and my goal tonight really is this very work session. You sitting here right now, I mean, your interest in, your response to these topics are a vital part of the process going forward. Issaquah was one of the founders of EFR in the beginning, and we're still looked at as, obviously, a leading member. I mean, there's 5. I mean, everybody's obviously is important, but at this stage of the game, I think this council's sentiments and reactions are being watched closely. And so I'm going to first start out with kind of going through the timeline and of what we're going to be doing here and how it kind of fits within a certain timeline. I mentioned too, Wes Collins and Greg Tryon from EFR are both here in the audience. I really appreciate you guys being here, because I'm sure I'll say something wrong and I know that you'll correct me, so I appreciate that, because this is actually moving pretty fast.
I'm going to ask both Greg and if you all would come up to the table, please.
And if you could...
Wes, why don't you get in front of one of the mics over there in case you have to...
And please share with us your hashtag. so we can record it. Yeah, that was close.
I did want to make one comment about the last presentation, that one of the things they didn't say is that video about the DUI drill, we've actually been able to use to leverage a troublesome school that really didn't want to get involved in that program. And by showing that very short, powerful video, we've now in a constant dialogue with them. So I really do appreciate Autumn and Tim for putting that together, because it's made my job a little easier and twisting some elbows for a good cause. So
fantastic. All right, so like I said, this is going to be way more exciting than any of that. So what I've put up here, okay, we can see the whole thing. So just some timelines to be aware of. Across the top is, you might recognize the color scheme. That's kind of the EFR one. So, and then on the bottom are all our City of Issaquah actions. So we had a discussion about these potential term changes at Services and Safety last week on the 5th. So Stacy and Eileen and I had, and that was a great service to me because it led into an ad hoc committee meeting that we had on the next day, on Friday. So that's when all 5 parties had representatives there, along with Wes was there, and so was Chief Soppich. And so today, obviously, we're at December 9th. This is our work session where I wanted to give you the results of that conversation. But then, and where does this fit, and why are we doing this now? Well, look at the top line. So there's an EFR board meeting on December 12th. And the way the process works is the board will adopt, adopt maybe might not be the right word, but it will accept proposals here. We're proposing changes to an ILA. Now, the way they take effect is that then goes to all 5 of the partners. There's 3 city councils and 2 fire districts, fire commissions, and all 5 it must be unanimous. All 5 partners, whether 3 commissions and councils and 2 commissions, must, in affirmative, adopt those, and then it goes back to kind of the EFR board for final adoption. So that's a very important process. The ad hoc committee has made its recommendations, and the EFR board will be considering them in 3 days, on Thursday and the 12th. And so this is our opportunity to get the rest of your comments as well. And Eileen, definitely, you're planning on being there on the 12th, right? And I think I'm going to be the other member there as well. I think so. So it also is the other opportunity for the rest of our colleagues on the council here to give us your indication of how you want us as board members, to be voting, and that's pretty critical. Now, for us to actually adopt it, if you look at the bottom line there, is that following our regular process, it would be, probably on around the first business meeting in January, there'd be an agenda bill, we refer it to Services and Safety, and that's our normal process, right? Services and Safety would finalize the terms, or you make its recommendation, and then that agenda bill would go back to regular council, and that would, the earliest it would be on the 21st of January, where then we would be considering action to formally adopt the changes. Now, there's one problem with this timing, and as you can kind of see up there, is that our partner Sammamish, in their resolution had asked for all of this to be finalized by the 17th of January, which would be, obviously would be prior to us meeting on the 21st. And so this is potentially problematic. So I'm just going to show you an alternative schedule, and then we'll talk about it again after we've gone through all of the items. And that would be potentially based upon the amount of information we have right now and how well we understand the potential changes that already exist, is that maybe without going back to Services and Safety, we could be entertaining an agenda bill at our next regular meeting next week, where I would probably do a similar presentation for our consideration. That is really the only way that I can see how we can get it done before the 17th of January. There may be some other ideas, but it is one. I shouldn't say it's the only way, but it is one way. And so I'm not asking for that right now, but after we go through all of these, I'll come back to that kind of question of the timing. I think it's important. I think that, some of our partners and Sammamish has done a lot of work and brought it to this stage. And so I'm very interested in honoring that and making sure that we can do what we can to wrap things up prior to the date that they had asked. Okay? So that's, so I've got 8 slides, and each one of these are pulled right off the Samamas resolution. So they did a resolution, there are 8 points on there, and so I have 1 slide for each of their points. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the ad hoc committee, where it kind of pertains to in the ILA, and also what the ad hoc committee recommended, and then look for any kind of comments or feedback from you this evening. So hopefully these won't take very long. And so these are in the same order that they are in their resolution. The first one says the funding formula shall be revised as described above. Okay, I don't reference that here, but as described above and incorporated into the new interlocal agreement. And what it was describing above is the 85-15 split for AV and actual costs, so operational costs. So that in the interlocal agreement is reflected in something called Exhibit A. I have the language for that. I think, Wes, I just got it from Don today. Don Jaron happened to give it to me today, so I've kind of seen that. So that one's actually we have already passed a resolution in support of that part of it. So for our action in this regard, this is the one bullet item from the resolution we're already done on. So there's really nothing to ask for there. But I'm going to ask Wes right now, in that you just came up with the actual changes to Exhibit A. I don't know how was that was recently, and what is the status of the other partners on the language for the funding formula?
Well, on the funding formula, all the partners have agreed to it in principle at the last board meeting.
Okay.
So all we're trying to do is convert their language that was agreed to in principle and get it into Exhibit B or Exhibit A language, so that, and that's just kind of a step how to do the.
Could you turn your mic on, please?
Oh, it's not on?
Well, it is on, but
Speak into it.
Speak into it would be helpful.
Speak into the mic. I told you I didn't want to be recorded. No. So that's where we're at that stage right now. We're trying to get the language to be kind of more common and easier to understand. One of the drawbacks of the old way that Exhibit A was written was, if you weren't doing it like we were doing it every year, you didn't understand. There's no way to read it and go, you could recreate it. So we sent that off. We made the changes. We sent it off to the attorney, and the attorney basically said, I can't tell what you're doing. It's still too confusing. So tomorrow is going to be a big day of getting the language. He gave us a lot of suggestions, getting the language to be more common, so that somebody can just pull it out, read it, understand it. Not change any of the things that everybody wants to do, but just to get the language so that it can be followed easier by a layperson, not somebody who knows what a CAD is, knows what a response area is, kind of putting some of those definitions into it. So anyway, that's where we're at. Tomorrow we'll rewrite it some more, get it to be more common language. Then it goes to Finance and Ops Committee. They're going to review it, make sure that we haven't lost any of the intent from the meeting, the last board meeting. So from there, it goes to the board on Thursday, and we hope we can get them to agree to it. It has to be an unanimous vote. They'll have to agree to it, and then it will become part of the current interlocal agreement. It's kind of outside of what we're doing with this, because it actually applies to the current interlocal agreement. But then when we change to the new 2015 interlocal agreement, then that language will just carry forward.
Okay, so the funding formula change has kind of been through the process. What's left is the board finalizing it, but it won't come back to the partners, that particular item at all.
No.
Okay. Okay. All right, 7 more. So the second one, and I've added the emphasis of the other lines. The requested change was changes in governance and membership in EFR shall require unanimous approval of all partners. Interestingly enough, now, we really didn't talk about the word governance last Friday, and I don't know. So I'm at fault because I had identified, and we didn't bring that up there, and so my comment on here is really. We may have to take up further consideration, but I added the comment, the current practice as illustrated by the pursuit of the nonprofit status. So there is there is a proposed change in governance is to convert to a nonprofit. That would be an example of a change in governance. And that practice being followed right now is that that agenda bill has been delivered to all of the partners. It's only once everybody has approved that, unanimous, so all 5 partners, before it could be become a change, to the ILA. So that's, I guess, this is really maybe one area where, I don't know if you have a comment about this, Wes, but I don't think we didn't touch upon this, the word governance, on Friday. We spent some time talking about the next one about membership. And then basically what we've discovered is that there is a section, ILA Article 21, it's called addition of members. Basically, it already says that it requires unanimity. So really no change is needed. So what Sammamish was asking for here was already in the agreement for membership, so we're good. But what they asked for regarding governance, you had a reference in some of your material, Wes, but it seems to be pretty indirect rather than a direct mention of governance. So
yeah, it doesn't mention it directly, but throughout the interlocal agreement, it talks about what you can do, what the board has the authority to change, and what the board doesn't have authority to change.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't have the authority to change a governance or, a way of doing that kind of business. So not everything in the interlocal agreement is specified. It'd be a really long one if you had to go through and specify everything, but
yeah,
it is, if you were to change governance, that's it. Anytime you change the interlocal agreement or the makeup of the interlocal, you have to go back to all the parties, which means all 5 have to vote for it. So without saying governance, I know it doesn't say it, but I think it's covered. That's
right.
just,
so, comment, question?
Can we ask a question?
Yeah.
Why is there a move to go to a nonprofit? What is the different? Why change the governance?
Okay, so I don't have the soundbite for that. Maybe these guys do. It probably will come back to us, and we'll have. But we are not considering the change for the nonprofit right now. This is not part of our consideration at this moment. If that's your one, so we're not taking action on nonprofit status tonight at all.
I was just curious as to why there was even a talk of changing.
I'll see if Wes or Greg can answer.
the main reason that the nonprofits come up is that interlocal agreements cannot have employees. And so right now, District 10 is the employer of record. And so they carry a higher degree of liability because they carry all the employees for EFR. And even more important than that is they really carry a major veto or major stick. And they feel, the District 10 board feels, that it's unfair for them to wield that kind of power. They don't want anybody to wield it. And because what could happen right now is that we could have a CVA go across, a bargaining agreement with the employees. The board could vote against it, and District 10 could say, oh, we like it, and they could pass it, which would, kind of destroy the whole purpose behind having the board. So they don't like having that power, and they don't think anybody should have to have that power. So what they would like to get rid of being the employer of record. Now, a nonprofit can have employees, and it cleans up a few of the employment issues. That's the main reason. There's other little benefits, but that's the main reason the nonprofit's being discussed.
Okay. All right, so the third issue from the Sammamish list of changes, individual partners shall continue to retain ownership and title of their respective fire stations, which is real property, and then also vehicles and equipment, which is personal property, consistent with the fire stations, vehicles, and equipment each entity brought into the partnership. Now, this is a very important issue for Sammamish, and I understand why, and I think it's my read, and I'm new to the whole EFR thing. I think it's clearly a very important issue for District 10. It's an important issue for us. District 38 and North Bend brought a little bit less to it, but it's important. It's important to everybody, though they don't have quite as much at stake here. And so, as we looked at this, the actual issue, there is an Article 12.1 titled "Real Property Ownership," And that basically says that the parties will retain their title to real property. So no change needed, which is good. There is the following article, 12.2, titled Personal Property Ownership. Also, the intent was that for it to say the parties retain title to their personal property. However, the language in there was unclear. And so there is a proposed change here, and let me kind of go up to this. And I'm not going to read this whole agreement. That's not my intent for you guys to go through all of this. But just wanted to point out of what the board will be considering. And this, by the way, is the form of, wait, do I have that? I said, oh yeah, 12.2. This is the form that was distributed today, Wes?
Yes, this is from the ad hoc committee's changes and then the changes that the attorney put into it after that.
So this is just a few hours off the press. And so the ad hoc committee recommended like striking the first one, and I think the clarifying language that down there is pretty clear is that that was added, I think, by the attorney in the white down here, and indicates whether the personal property of the party is considered separate personal property of the party or joint personal property of the joint fire department. So what this language now says is basically it restates what I think some of the other members thought was true already, and Sammamish wanted to be clarified, and I think Sammamish is their representative is comfortable with this. This says exactly that. If you came into the partnership and you own personal property, you had title to that you retain ownership, you retain title. And so I think this is an improvement to get it back to the original intent of the agreement. Stacy, do you have a question or comment?
Well, my question is this, are we doing this by practice anyway? So do we already know? It's just that, okay. So the intent and the...
This is current practice.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do in this agreement is just make current practice clearer, so anybody reading it would understand that this is what we're doing now.
And the context for the discussion, as I understand it, perhaps had to do with the desire to know the outcome regarding property if a member leaves, what they then take.
Exactly.
Upon their leaving the partnership. Okay.
Exactly, and this is where I don't have really good illustrative material here, but the last sub-bullet says requires Exhibit B to be updated and clarified. And Exhibit B in the ILA is where exactly that is, like, here is the property that each partner has title to. It has other things, but in addition, here's the property that each partner has title to, so it's very clear on what they own. Let me start with Mary Lou.
He was first.
Okay, go ahead, Fred.
And so, personal property, that confused me a little bit. We're talking about equipment. We're talking about apparatus. How far down does that go?
On the Exhibit B, it's very detailed. It focuses mainly on equipment that's titled equipment, engines, ladder trucks, 8 cars. That's where it spends most of its time, but also all the staff vehicles. But then it gets into air packs, rescue tools, thermal.
So it gets into that
kind of depth, yes.
Okay.
So all of those items are in there. Where we kind of draw the line is we don't classify, the desk and individual computers and brass and hose and those kind of things. Those are what we consider more of a operating expense. They come and go, and we don't run them through that process.
Okay, that's helpful.
So in simple language, when everything came together and they formed the joint fire department, everybody brought certain things in. Is that their only real personal property? Are assets that were purchased for fire stations after they joined then joint property?
It's actually, I think it can be a mix of both. For example, we actually on our own, there is an equipment replacement fund that we pay into, and that, just like the title suggests, it's used for replacing a piece of equipment. But if we ourselves, City of Issaquah, wanted to buy a piece of equipment and and add it to our list of assets or an EFR, that's covered as well. And I think that happened when we opened Station 73 within the last couple of years. So the answer to your question is, it's not just when we started, it's anything else that we on ourselves would buy and give over to EFR as well. We retain that.
A second part to that would be if somebody came in with 3 fire trucks and over time they get replaced out of these funds, are they still the
They get the
personal-
title to the replacement
they get the
equipment.
title to the replacement.
And so to drill, so Station 72, which is a new station, we purchased new equipment for that station, some new equipment.
No, you didn't.
So where did that equipment come from? That came from,
That
some
was
from,
that was an existing station. We just moved.
that we moved it. That's,
Probably the best example is when we opened Station 73, which was a new station in the city of Issaquah in the system. We determined that we had enough equipment and engines to
staff
that station. So in the original plan, the city was going to buy an engine and an aid car for that station. We determined, well, we already have enough engines. The city doesn't need to buy an engine, but the city did need to buy an aid car. And so the city bought the aid car. That got added to your inventory. You also bring things on like air compressors as you build new stations. Those are considered separate equipment. We don't really put them in part of the station, just because they can be unbolted and moved around if we need to. So those get added to your inventory. But we don't inventory small things.
Stacy?
Is the proposal or the idea to update Exhibit B before that the mid-January timetable too?
On the titled property,
Exhibit B is done, and it'll be brought forward on this Thursday, so that the board can review Exhibit B also. And basically, again, that was a clarifying of language. Exhibit B, if you read it in the past, was kind of how we started the fund, and it was a lot of accounting, and a lot of accounting ease, a lot of gap discussion. Now we've kind of simplified it, and it just says, here's how it works.
Oh, okay. I thought Exhibit B was the actual list of all the properties.
It is.
Oh, it is
as well.
Okay.
It is as well.
There's
Several
a
workbook.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the summary page that everybody was having difficulty with. So we fixed the summary page. The rest of it is all, it's just, here's how we're depleting and saving money to replace equipment.
Okay.
So from Sammamish's perspective, they came in with real property. They retain ownership of that real property. They came in with other personal property with title. They retain ownership, and even if it's replaced, they get the title for the replacement piece as well. And that was that wasn't as clear, I think, as Wes said. People were having problems with some of that. So that seems to have been clarified, and the existing intent and practices was already, this isn't really a change, it's a clarification, which is good. The next one in the Sammamish list was depreciation and maintenance of vehicles and equipment shall be the financial responsibility of the partner assigned the vehicles and equipment. So this, and we didn't, again, on Friday quite discuss that. When I was sitting down trying to do this presentation, it wasn't as clear to me on really what we said about this one. So I did review this earlier today with another member, but it really, EFR maintains the vehicles. And I don't think it says, does it say that anywhere in the ILA? But EFR maintains the vehicles. If they need regular maintenance, EFR does that. And so, though this was one of the proposed changes to the ILA in the resolution from the city of Sammamish, I think they're going to be satisfied with the fact that EFR maintains the vehicles. That's the indication that I have. And so I don't think we're recommending any, the ad hoc committee didn't recommend any changes to the ILA per this request from Sammamish. Just a couple more. Vehicles and equipment considered to be regional assets, such as the boat or emergency trailer, shall have the depreciation and maintenance paid by all partners in the same proportion as their respective operating contributions. And so this really, we started talking about this as, we've talked about property, personal property that you had the title to. You owned an engine, you had the title to that. But what about other property that EFR owns where no individual party has the title, where EFR owns it, and it is, quote, shared? And that's really where this conversation has gone. What about the shared equipment? And you know, where this went and this phrase of partner. So everybody, there is some language in Exhibit A about how some partner equity and shared, there is a way for every partner to know what percentage of EFR that they owned. Some of it may be their own personal property, but the balance of that would reflect shared property. And so EFR has a method by which to compute that partner equity, or the other phrase that we started using, this net percent booked value. Thank you, Diane. Where there is this on the books value for these shared assets. What percent of them does each member have? And so there is a formula for calculating this net percent book value, and we reviewed that as part of the ad hoc committee, and I think Sammamish is satisfied with it and is not requesting any change to it going forward. However, the Exhibit B, which is supposed to list these, still needs to be updated. And I get the sense that all of those updates to Exhibit B, which was all the shared, may or may not be done in the same time as the titled equipment. I'm looking for some confirmation from you.
I think we have it done at this stage.
Okay.
It's just a matter of whether or not, I haven't run it past the attorney for an attorney review.
Okay.
You never know what's going to happen there. But for the most part, we think we've rewritten the language. To us, it's very clear what you do with all of the different equipment and all the different areas. So we think we've hit the mark, but again, it'll be one of those things once more eyes have seen it, that whether or not it's very clear and concise. It is to us, but we live it and breathe it, so it may not be as clear and concise to others.
Mary Lou?
A question on this one and the last one. Are these, again, just housekeeping ones where this is the current practice and the wording is getting better, or is there a monetary change attached?
This looks like it's all just clarifications.
All clarification.
There is no change in calculation.
Okay.
It's all just clarification. And the indication I've seen is that Sammamish the representative is satisfied with that and believes that their council should be, expects them to be as well. Because, again, they came in with stuff, they owned it,
Yep.
they still have it, and oh, by the way, there are these shared assets as well. What percentage of those are ours?
Right.
And the methods for determining all that already existed. We're not changing any of those, but we're going to clarify how they're done and the bookkeeping of those.
And there's a monetary value that's connected with each one of those,
Mhm.
and it's depreciated over time, so that at the end of the life of the boat, that would be zeroed out.
Yeah, and we kind of do it in reverse, because we don't really depreciate the vehicles. We save for their replacement.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter what they cost at the beginning. What we're doing is we're saving amounts of money every year on their life, so that when they hit the end of life, that we have enough cash to replace them.
Well, for those particular vehicles that are owned by the partners, but the shared pieces are we actually saving forward for the boat?
Yes. We're projecting what it looks like it's going to cost us in 15 years or 20 years. That's the goal, and then how much do we have to save per year?
Yeah, we're doing it for all the EFR assets and the individual partner assets.
Okay. I didn't realize we were doing it on these smaller shared pieces as well. Okay.
Okay. So now, the next few deal with some actual language changes. The other ones were clarifications. So each partner shall select its representatives to the EFR Board of Directors. And currently in the ILA Article 3.2 titled Appointment, it says, there's language that says, shall be members of city councils and boards of fire commissioners of the parties. And the proposed change is to shall be elected members of the parties. So what that does is that it retains it as elected members. So an elected mayor could be appointed. It's anybody who's elected. Josh?
There's language there that the one thing jumps out at me using that term, talking close enough to this, that seems troublesome.
Okay.
Which is the use of elected, because it would appear to preclude appointed council representatives, which means like when Joe Faulkner was serving, technically that wouldn't have been sufficient under this ILA. So
get it. So is Joe, was in that example, was Joe technically elected or appointed?
He was appointed to an elected position.
So when he was appointed, that wasn't the wording that was used, so that's something that we can, yeah, correct.
Because that would have been proper under the previous.
Correct.
Yep.
He was a member of the city council, but he wasn't elected.
And or appointed to an elected position.
Yeah.
And so it looks like, under the current language, a mayor could not.
Correct.
And what this does is provide that as an option.
It provides that as an option. Another reason this came up too was there was discussion, does it have to be an elected or a person appointed to an elected? What about a staff member? And so we discussed that, and the ad hoc committee achieved consensus on it should be elected. So thank you for that clarifying language, but I'm hoping that our council won't have any issue with the proposed change. I mean, this is definitely one of the language areas, so Fred, as the mayor-elect, we're going to appoint you. No, I'm kidding. But I can see how it's, so I think of myself is that each partner, the fact that it would be an elected member, they've got some authority, they've got some budget making and approving authority, spending, and that's what we want on the board.
And I have no problem adding, the language change, as long as we can clean up a little, address the appointed issue that Josh brought. And I think that's a simple enough change to what you've been talking about. So Josh brings up a good point.
And he also solidified his chances of being appointed to the next ILA ad hoc committee. Thank you, Josh.
Having served on the ETP Rules Subcommittee, this is somewhat familiar process to me.
You might even finally get through the process this Friday.
Okay. Okay, there are two more. The second to last, an operations committee composed of staff from each of the partners shall be formed. Now, there's actually more in their resolution than this, but this is the top title. And I want to point out, too, is that though this found its way onto Sammamish's resolution, it was actually put there, it was actually a member of our own city staff who suggested it, and Sammamish's representative kind of aggregated all the various suggestions, and they took them up under their own resolution. So these didn't all just come, this is one that actually came from our suggestion. Now, the good news is again, as Article 3.4 on committees and task force point out, is that this is already completely doable. No change is needed. And in fact, there's been a lot of discussion about that. It seems to be that I don't think the ad hoc, well, the board will probably take this up in the near future, but the ad hoc committee has no recommended changes to the ILA, other than to say that this operational committee, which totally up to the discretion of the board, to allow parties to appoint staff to this. And I think that's the key thing in that many times staff, because it's their sweet spot, it's their area of expertise, their ability to get involved with an issue and understand it and help work with the other partners, can make vital contributions to those of us who may be on the board, and then it can provide that guidance and advice to the actual voting board members. And so this isn't the way it's working right now. I think there seems to be a lot of interest in all the partners to, at least I picked up on this, to do something like this and allow it to be open to staff as well.
Well, this is, I mean, as we are able to do this right now, I mean, the board can add additional committees as needed.
That's right.
And as they see the need for. I think the change would be that now staff members, and that has always been a possibility in the past previously also. It wasn't just simply board of directors.
Right, and then in language, in section 3.4, it really doesn't say anything about the composition of the committee or task force. So it's kind of silent on who, so it's really, I would read this as up to the discretion of the board on how they could compose a committee or task force. So no change there. And so the final one, oh, I'm sorry, Mary Lou. Sure.
And this would be a committee that is formed and meets before the board meetings, provides information in the board meetings? Like, I'm not really sure what they would do.
You know, it's not entirely clear to me as well, but the model I have in my mind is, it's probably the same one I'd ask you to consider, is like, we here at the city have boards and commissions, and there are certain topics that they're experts on that come to them. They're appointed, by the mayor, and there are certain issues. They've got a charter, and they come to them, and they deliberate, and they come to a conclusion, and they make recommendations to the mayor and to the city council, and I would see it operating in a similar way.
Eastside Fire Rescue now currently has two subcommittees that are operating. One is regional personnel, and the other one is finance and ops. So the desire to have a third will come before the board, or regional personnel is not always that busy, so it could possibly be some kind of a combination of some of those, or a third committee as needed.
And Eileen, I understand that those two that you mentioned are staffed only with board members currently.
And this would be an
So this general practice, what I'm seeing is this general practice change. Maybe we need to actually get people who know how to. Let me say it a little bit differently. Maybe the electeds and board members, if they were supported by staff and could get advice from staff, that the overall operation and efficiency of the for upper management would be improved. How's that?
Just the one example we hear a lot is, well, I need to take this back to my city manager or city administrator.
Yeah.
And so if we could reverse the order so that the board member said, no, I know my staff has looked at this, and now I can weigh the actual policy decision instead. So,
and I think always being directors has just simply been practice. No one has perhaps even pushed until now in regards to having staff members being on these different committees, and it should be a very good addition.
I think it was Bob Harrison that made the first suggestion, so he had an honorary appointment for life last Friday. Okay, I was just kidding.
But there's a great list of possible things to look at on the operations committee, so that will be
And another thing, I'm sorry.
No, just something for the board to take a look at.
Right. I think what Sammamish had the practice of actually bringing staff to board meetings, and I think that whole loop of, I would want to, get some input or feedback, or can they contribute to the conversation? And so this is one way, an operations committee that actually had staff of make sure they're part of that. But I also think I heard that, there may be a board meeting that and all the members of the board are, elected or fulfilling or appointed to elected positions, wherever that language is going to be, that there may be staff present, maybe sitting in the audience, and that their ability to actually be included in the conversation. And to me, that sounds just like a practice, and whether or not it's allowed or not. But I think that was just the one other thing about wanting to take advantage of the expertise that was available in staff and using that in the decision-making process.
Because I know that at one time, Samamish's Director of Finance attended just about all of those meetings, but I don't believe I ever heard him speak at a board meeting. He was just in the audience and was taking information back following the meeting.
They almost always have somebody from staff, one of their directors is there. It's been Mike Sauerwein for the last few years, and he's at a lot of the committee meetings, and he's at a lot of the board meetings. And I think for the way they do business, it was frustrating for them because we communicate directly to their council member, our board, the person that's on the board, and we don't directly communicate with their staff person. So their board member would come back to the staff person and say, well, Efer's doing this, and Mike would go, well, I don't have all the background on that, and so then that would put them in, they'd feel like they were playing catch up. So that's why they really want to see an operations board, and we want to see it too. We think it'll benefit Eastside Fire and Rescue, and I think it'll also cut down on the demands we put on our board of directors. We have, you guys already have a busy schedule, and then we ask for 3 more meetings sometimes a month. And if we could drop some of those meetings and get the information to you in a more direct format, a format that most in the cities are used to, that it comes through staff up to you. You guys get policy direction or ideas, and then you give direction. So we're hopeful that that whole system could work better.
Yeah, and I think I'm optimistic that Sammamish will see it that way, but of course they'll consider that. But their representative in ad hoc committee was optimistic that this plan would work for them as well. So and so, again, the original motivation was, can we get staff on the board? Well, the ad hoc committee said, no, let's keep it as. Well, actually, that was the previous one. Let's keep it at elected and appointed, but go ahead and create this operations committee, which no ILA change is required for. Okay, and then the last one, this would be a language change. So we really haven't looking at a lot of language changes. And their last request was budget approval shall require approval by at least 6 members of the EFR board. And so Article 3.3 dealing with meetings actually has language in there that deals with budgetary items or anything over $50,000, which their budget is over $50,000. And that language basically, there is language in there that there's something called a weighted majority, and I don't have to go into all the details of right now because the committee had consensus in that that language be changed, and the current proposed language says 5 of 8. And that is really happens to be a simple majority. I was pushing for the language. Can we just change it? Can we just say a simple majority? But if it comes back as 5, well, 8. I mean, 5 is a simple majority of 8. So I mean, it's still achieving that. I think changing it to a simple majority simply means that the language would work if there's some other change in the board composition through some other change. So, the actual language is also then is removing the definition of a weighted majority from that section as well. And so I think the calculation, the weighted majority was the weighting was a percentage of contribution. And so what originally motivated this was, what it said was the weighted the language said 71%. It took 71% of the weighted majority to approve a budgetary item. And currently, District 10's contribution is greater than 40%. So technically, District 10 with their weighting, if all 6 other board members voted in favor of a budgetary item, the 2 District 10 representatives could vote negative, that would be, and we would not achieve the 71%. That was the original motivation, is that one partner shouldn't be able to defeat a budgetary item. So the way the path that this is taken was, it's budget. Let's just do a majority or a simple majority, or in this case, explicitly 5.
So is it going to say a simple majority, or is it going to say 5?
Well, the current language says 5.
Okay.
That's been put together.
But you had indicated that the simple majority might actually be better, because if there were partnership changes during the ILA period, 5 would no longer be an accurate simple majority.
Which there would have to be an ILA change anyway, so we'd have to clean that part up too.
Okay. Is there a quorum requirement for the meetings out of the 8? What's that?
Do you know off the top of your head?
5. So in this case, a budget would have to have an unanimous vote if only 5 were there.
Right.
So there has to be at least 5 present, and there'd have to be, and this language says there'd have to be 5.
Okay.
Now, is this just for a budget item, or is this for approving the annual budget?
This was for both. Any budget item over 50,000 would require this, and any annual budget would require that. Everything else is just basically simple majority. So if you only have a quorum of 5 and it's a signing of a letter of agreement or any of those other action items, then it only takes 3 of the 5. That's simple majority. But in cases of the way this language is written, in the case of a budget, you'd have to have 5 votes, regardless of how many people were in the meeting that day.
Oh, Wes, what you just said kind of confused me, because if you had a quorum of 5, and we've been going through this for about 2 years at ETP, there's a difference between majority and majority of voting members present, and what you just described is actually a majority of voting members present at a meeting, which would then require 3 of 5. But if in fact a majority is required, it would always be a majority of the total voting members, which would be 5 out of 8. So
yeah, and the interlocal agreement's written for both those occasions. So there are certain things that only need a majority of the members present.
Okay.
But on issues like anything that's over $50,000 or a budget, and then there's some others that actually require a unanimous vote of all the parties. So sometimes it takes 8 of 8. So it names all of those different scenarios.
Okay. As long as that distinction
Yeah,
is
and the
there.
distinction's in the interlocal agreement.
Yes?
So when we were at services, I think one of the questions I had was what the particular issue was with this. So you talked earlier about the scenario that there could be a scenario where District 10, because of their large contribution, could hold up the budget. So, but that's never happened. And I wondered if there had been any discussion at the ad hoc committee about what the issue was with what was driving the suggested change here.
We did have that conversation, and that was repeated. That was it. Yeah, just like an FYI, that should Klahanie annex into Issaquah, Klahanie is currently served by District 10, then our total contribution, then including Klahanie, we would become the majority in that size too. So in the future, if they had continued to use the weighted majority in this, then we would have had actually that ability, our 2 board members, to deny passage of a budgetary item just when I know there are all 6 other voters had approved it. But that's kind of looking forward. The conversation was simply about that, should a single member, in this case the majority member who has greater than 39%, be able to kill a budgetary item, and that was the only reason given. But I think people seem to be, it's budgetary. It makes simple majority makes sense. So that was our conversation. Any other questions? So that's so there was a lot about real and personal property, no language changes, but things in the in Exhibit B that need to be clarified. So we'll be seeing that. There's this language change right here about going from this weighted majority, and then the other one had to do with this idea about where it specifically said city councils and boards of fire commissioners. There'll be so these are pretty simple changes in my mind. So this is my last slide.
One quick question, though.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Going back to, if I can ask Wes, please, committees and task force. In the ILA, it doesn't speak to any number of members or who can make up those. We somewhat have a practice now of what we do, but I mean, could we have a committee of 6, 7, whatever is chosen? There is, okay. So there could be, 2 members from a district or 2 members from a city sitting on any of these subcommittees. They're just whatever.
Yeah, it's totally up to the board on your makeup, how many committees, how often they meet.
Who sits on them, the
Who
number
sits on them.
of representatives that sit on them. There's nothing spelled out. Okay, I couldn't find anything.
We specifically tried to keep, when we came up with this interlocal agreement, you'll notice that this isn't a huge interlocal agreement for such a major organization like Eastside Fire and Rescue. Yeah. And that comes from Rod Casaguma, who's the attorney, and he likes to keep these things open so that the board has a lot of latitude to do their business, and they're not bound by little rules here and there. And I think one of the things, by changing some of this language that we're doing in this amendment, we're actually freeing it up a little bit more, and mainly through clarification of what was meant. Sometimes when you have language that is written very open, you also get confused on it also. So we're going to clarify it, which actually opens up the language a little bit more. And with this clarification, I think it'll be shown the intent of the board is to have committees, and they could be operating committees, they could be task force.
I just go back to the same thing that we talked about earlier about how Sammamish, their staff oftentimes felt like they were missing information, but as an elected, with just staff sitting on a particular committee, I think as a director to Eastside Fire and Rescue, I would feel I would be missing some of that information, that firsthand information, and the ability to contribute to the discussion also. So that's why I was, if 2 can sit on these committees. So, thank you.
So there actually was one other point I didn't have any material on I wanted to mention. There actually are other changes to the ILA. Wes and his actually had proposed. They're house cleaning. They're kind of cleanup stuff. They're nothing. Wes, is that you agree with that characterization?
Yeah,
just clean up.
The interlocal agreement had a lot of. It talked about commissions, board of commissioners, and city councils, which, if we ever try to grow it, if somebody comes into EFR and they're a regional fire authority and they want to join EFR, then they could, because you could say, well, regional fire authorities aren't in the language. If the Snoqualmie tribes had interest in the past of coming into EFR, so, well, you're a tribe, you're not a city council or fire district. So we just took out all the fire district, city council language and just replaced that with parties. The party or the parties, and then that way it opens it up that just about any entity could come into the interlocal agreement that the board and the rest of you would want to come in. If a Boeing fire department wanted to be part of it, you guys could look at it and say, well, yeah or no about it. But instead of keeping it such strict language to fire districts and city council. So that was one of the language cleanups we did. And then we just did a few other ones that just brought clarification to the agreement. Most of it was changing from city councils to parties.
Okay, so this is my last slide, and I'm going to, oh, come on, show up in there. I'm going to actually draw on here, and I'm going to put in I'm doing this with my right index finger. Now know that I am left-handed, so.
You said there was no animation.
I told you this was going to be exciting. So I'm writing in the 6th of January of 2014. That's the first council meeting. So one way that we, as a participant in this, could be that now that you understand the kind of the scope of these changes, my own assessment that we understand them very well. I'm getting kind of the sense of the council that that our representative on the EFR board Thursday are getting the green light to approve these changes. Is that the general sense of the council with some of these changes, with the revisions that we talked about? And so one way that we can eliminate this potential by our own schedule and maybe cause an issue with the January 17th date that's in their resolution and not ask anybody or expect anybody to change their resolution or dates again is for us either to resolve it either our next business meeting a week from today or on our business meeting after that, which is the 6th of January, which would mean which means creating an agenda bill and not going to services and safety, and then actually reviewing the contents of that agenda bill at one of these two regular council meetings. And I'd throw that out there as that I'd like us to consider that, and if I need to kind of have a quick summary of the changes and review and present them to the entire council at a regular council meeting so that we can take a final action, I'd be willing to do that, and then we would then this whole date thing is off the table, and we've done that.
So it's already gone to Safety and Services 1, so Stacy can weigh in on whether or not what we've heard tonight, do you feel like there's a benefit to having it go back through the group again, the committee again?
Well, I'm going to have Eileen answer since she's the chair of services.
Oh, there we go.
I don't see the need for it to necessarily come back to Service and Safety. We've reviewed it. It's been discussed by the ad hoc committee. All the concerns that we had have been resolved. And if there is something that pops up, which I can't see, we have the opportunity to speak forward at that council meeting. So I don't see the need at all.
It would seem like a regular business.
Yes. So the next regular business meeting, regular business, exactly. So probably that one on the 6th of January makes the most, because we still have to put an agenda bill together. EFR has to have the board meeting. The final language has to be proposed by them. We need to put together an agenda bill. And the time frame of doing that on January 6th seems to make a little bit more sense.
So will the ad hoc committee meet again?
It's not currently planning on it.
Okay. And will you be at the EFR board meeting?
On the 12th?
The 12th?
Yes.
So we'll have two representatives there who are knowledgeable. And, you know, these changes don't really appear to be, I mean, they're relatively minor. It's actually, you know, confirming more than anything our past practices and making it a little bit clearer. So you know, for me personally, I think the 6th January council meeting is, unless there's a wrinkle, as you point out, the council could take action without referral to committee.
There's one argument for maybe doing it a week from today, and that would be what we know for certain is that the current Sammamish council is the one that put forward these changes, and they're having some changes in council. So you have, with the new council seated, things can change. And so us taking action prior to that would be the one motivation that we might use to do it a week from tonight. So maybe let's take this under consideration, perhaps at leadership on Wednesday.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Because you had a good meeting with with Don Jaron on the Sammamish City Council, and so you have some insights from that meeting. There will be some changes on the Sammamish Council. There will be some changes on the Sammamish Council, and it'd be interesting to get some feel or feedback on what direction, because they can still withdraw regardless of what we do, and it's been very, very controversial discussion up there on these issues. But let's talk about it at leadership on Wednesday morning.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, us taking action on the 6th, still the Sammamish resolution that's scheduled to happen on the 17th would include their new council makeup. So it doesn't, anyway.
I think there's this timeline, it might be possible for their current council to take action before the end of the year as well. So that would be the considerations for us to make on doing it a different timeline. So what I'm hearing is there's no need for it to go back to services and safety. So at least we can easily not have conflict with the January 17 date. And whether or not we do it in a week or the next or the subsequent business meeting is to be determined. But we understand the issues. Okay, good. That's all I had. If there's no other comments, I think we're done.
Well, is there anyone in the audience desiring to comment on this topic? Anyone in the audience desiring? Seeing no one then, is there any other business to come before the council? Paul, thank you for representing the city on the ad hoc committee. Appreciate that very, very much, and the preparation and the briefing. Wes and Greg, thank you very, very much for your support. And Diane, I know you have been involved as has been our city administrator. So this has been a great team effort, and we are adjourned.